punch in that is here.
Recording in progress.
First thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Let me get out of the way. Supervisor Powers.
Great Creator, kindle, we pray, in every heart the true love of peace. Guide with your wisdom those who take counsel for the nations of the earth, that in tranquility peace may increase until the earth is filled with knowledge. Amen.
Do I hear a motion for the adoption of the agenda? Motion is made and seconded. All right, at this time, according to the rules of the county board, anyone from the public that wishes to speak, we'll start with the ones out in the back of the room here, will have 2 minutes to speak. So, pardon? Pardon? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Now, anyone wishing to speak, state your name and address and what you'd like to talk to the board on tonight on anything on the agenda.
I live at 1002 Grove Street here in Oshkosh, and I would like to encourage you to vote no on accepting the ARPA funds tonight. It reminds me a lot of the housing collapse in 2008, where prior to that, money was cheap. People bought big houses they couldn't afford. I don't want to spend money frivolously buying new buildings, new equipment, adding headcount that we can't afford, and create more spending fiscal issues that once the money's spent, we can't afford. So let's live within our means. And James, you're representing me, so I encourage you to vote no tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to talk to the county board? State your name and address, please.
Yes, of course. Good evening. My name is Christopher Driscoll. I live at 426 Dove Street. My representative is Michael Robinson. Hello. I share similar feelings with Philip. I'm worried about accepting more ARPA funds. When I think about ARPA funds, I think about boom towns. Perhaps you guys are familiar with the term. These towns, they get lots of influx of money, and pretty soon, you know, it's gone, and then the town busts. So I'm not interested in busting Oshkosh or Winnebago. So Michael, if you would, I would ask you to vote no on accepting any more ARPA funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the county board tonight on anything that's on the agenda? Anything that's on the agenda? Do we have anybody online? No one online. I'll ask one more time. Does anyone wish to speak to the county board tonight on anything on the agenda? Not seeing or hearing any? That part is closed. This time, communication, petitions, memorial accounts, and commendations. Got to hit the right one here.
Good evening, everyone. We have 2 notices of claims tonight. One from Sherry Gamsky for damage to her vehicle's tires caused by tar on the ramp to Racine Street in Menasha, and one from Heidi Krenke for damage to her vehicle caused by a pothole on Appleton Road in Menasha. Both of those will be referred to the Personnel and Finance Committee. And then we have a resolution from Eau Claire County, resolution number R166030, requesting the state of Wisconsin review and revise the entry-level compensation rate for assistant district attorneys. And that one will be referred to the legislative committee. On your desks tonight are your budget books for this year. You're more than welcome to take them home. If you do want to leave them here, I would really appreciate if you'd put your name on it, and then we'll keep them in the back room till next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Reports from committees, commissions, or boards. Supervisor Gustafson.
Thank you, Ms.
Should be on.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The IS committee met last week Thursday, and we had quite a good discussion about the storage concerns of the recorded meetings that have been occurring since the beginning of our session. And at this time, it seems that we are actually set for the current allotment for data space needed for quite a bit. So we will keep it on our radar, and we'll be addressing it in the coming committee meetings as well. Other than that, we obviously had the IS change for the department as well, which will now be renamed to the IT department. So that's what we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm giving a report on recent events that happened for the Diversity Affairs Commission. I'm going to read what I wrote as I'm still emotional about this. We live in a time where the majority of what we do online or in person is documented. This is a good reminder to be vigilant about our speech and keep our actions in check. As I sat down tonight, another supervisor handed me a recent article, which was very shocking to read. Within light of this, County Board Supervisor Karen Powers made comments about myself and the other Diversity Affairs Commission members. Supervisor Karen Powers strongly implied that I was racist, as well as the other members of the commission were also racist. She accused one of our group members of being a member of QAnon. Admittedly, I did not know what this is, so I had to look it up. This is a very personal attack on my reputation and the other commission members' reputations, which include members of our community. These comments about myself and the other members of the Diversity Affairs Commission were very upsetting and shocking. Unfortunately, I was not given an opportunity to speak and defend myself. I struggled at the last county board meeting, trying to decide if I should say something publicly, but I wanted to give Supervisor Karen Powers an opportunity to apologize for her actions, for making these claims and also using a racial slur. However, she has not done so. I'm still upset about the events that occurred and the hurtful language that was used and the attempt to dismantle mine and the other members' reputations. Thank you.
Supervisor Defferting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Judicial and Public Safety Committee for the Wisconsin Counties Association met on last Friday at Stevens Point. And a couple of things that we talked about, one of them was a presentation by a company that makes drones that oftentimes the counties have purchased from. And we did discuss a little bit about current legislation in the state regarding drone manufacturing. And we did also discuss current issues regarding state public defenders and how that's been increasing county budgets. You'll probably notice in the in your county budget regarding the in the clerk of court section that there's been a significant increase in the amount of money that we have spent over the last 3 years regarding appointing attorneys for those that are indigent and are awaiting a public defender. There's been current legislation in the state that was legislation in the state that went from compensating $40 an hour for attorneys to $100 an hour, and now we're looking at in 2023 $125 an hour, possibly in Governor Evers' budget. Of course, that's just the governor's budget. We'll see how that goes later on, but that's something that we should take a look at going forward. But the National Counties Association's Justice and Public Safety Committee had their monthly call, and we've had a couple people from the National Sheriff's Association's Ignite program, and the Ignite program is an acronym standing for Inmate Growth Naturally and Intentionally Through Education. And it turns out that I found out that a lot of the services that the Ignite program has is actually redundant to what Winnebago County already has. And that includes a lot of coaching for those that are formerly incarcerated to find jobs, to find transportation, and to get a roof over their head. And so these are all things that will be offered through the Human Services Department in Winnebago County going forward in 2023. We've also been joined by Deputy Administrator of the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and they highlighted recent initiatives and discussed how their work has contributed to declining rates of youth arrests through investments in community-based programs that involve children's families and providing opportunities for youth who do interact with the justice system. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think that this is the place to carry this stuff on, this petulant behavior, but since it was brought up and she asked for a response, I'm going to do it. At a recent meeting, did not accuse someone of being a QAnon. What I said was, I was told by someone in the community that a member of that committee, of the Diversity Affairs Commission, was a member of QAnon. And I said to that person who told me, and I said this at the meeting, do you have proof of this? And she said, no, I don't have proof, but it's certainly what I've heard. The supervisor in question asked me at the UW Extension Agriculture meeting, what is QAnon? The day after that, I spoke to County Executive Damel, and I said, does she really not know what QAnon is? He says, of course she knows what it is. I was accused of making a racial slur. I didn't make a racial slur. I quoted what a young black woman told me was said to her in a department store where she works. And instead of being so outraged by what an elderly white woman says to a bunch of other white people, why wasn't that commission outraged enough to ask me, what's the department store? We should contact that manager on behalf of that young black woman, where a white man called her that name, and go and write letters to the manager. They're more upset that I quoted it than the fact that it was actually said to a young white woman. She seems to think, Supervisor Dowling seems to think that I have said something horrible about her. In mid-April, a long-time retired supervisor contacted me about how things are going in the county. What's this, what's this, what's this? He was talking about something. I said, I think you're thinking of Rachel Youngquist. I said, the person in question is Rachel Dowling. She's new. I don't know her. Mid-April was the last time I mentioned that woman's name. I don't know where she thinks that I've called her a racist, but I've never mentioned her name until just tonight, except for mid-April when I said, you've got the two Rachels mixed up. No one has insulted anyone, and certainly have not insulted Supervisor Dowling in any way whatsoever. And if she has something written or something recorded that she can prove me wrong, bring it on, because I have not said her name since mid-April. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I just asked board members, it was brought up, so I'm letting everybody speak. I know there's another one I see on here that's probably going to speak on the same thing. But remember, we're all grown-ups here. It's happened. I met with the person that was in concern. I also had a corporate counsel in there. It's been talked about and all this and that, and I just want to let you know. Did we do anything to her? No, I'll tell you not. But we wondered what could happen the next time. You know, I can go around slapping hands. I can slap a lot of hands in here, and my hand can be slapped several times. So I just think that we're going to have to start growing up, all of us. But it was brought up, and I'm not saying it was done right or wrong. I'm just saying let's just kind of stick to the subjects now, and we'll work through this. Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually doing a report on JPS, so I'm not going to be on that topic. Though last time I did mention that I wish there were ways that we could figure out how we could have more discussion at committee. So I'm going to try something. Could be, this may not work, but what I'm going to try to make a point of doing is announcing things that we're going to be discussing at JPS. That way everyone knows what we'll be discussing, and hopefully we can get more people to come and have conversation there. So that's my hope and my preface to the report I'm going to give here. It's rather short. I just want to let you know that the JPS meeting is Monday, November 7th at 6 p.m. Right now, we're still working on the agenda, but right now we will be discussing several draft resolutions all around rules. One will be relooking at the rule around remote voting. It's the one that this body took up in some regard last time. However, I think there's some room for in between. And I would like to have a discussion at JPS on how we can come to a sensible conclusion on that. We also are going to talk about clarification on what a session is, what a meeting is, indefinite postponements, because they need to be much more focused in so we can actually have a clear definition of these terms. We will also be talking about some other issues around rules as well. So just wanted to let everyone know what we're doing, and hopefully you can join us. I got to say, JPS is a fun committee. It's awesome. We have great members, and we have great staff members that come and join us. So please, I'd love to see you. If nothing else, just come and smile. That's good too. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say that when I asked about QAnon at the UW Education Extension and Agriculture Committee, I had no idea what QAnon was. I now know a little bit about it, but I would like to say that if anyone wants to ask me questions, it would be appropriate to come to me and ask that question. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other ones at this time, so we'll move right along. Approval of September 6, 2022 special orders session and September 20th, 2022 regular sessions board proceedings. Do I see a motion? Are you making the motion? No, I got a correction. Oh, okay. Do I see a motion for it? No? Supervisor Cox.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve September 6th special order session.
Seconded by Supervisor Harrison.
There you go.
Question, Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My correction is not on the first part of the minutes, but on the actual business meeting, which is the second part of the minutes, I believe. That was the adjourned session of Tuesday, September 20th. Does the motion cover both minutes?
Yes.
Oh,
That's why I
okay.
read them both off at once. I read them both off at once, yes.
Okay. Then I'll speak if I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Supervisor Fari.
I do have a correction on page 68. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Third sentence down. I brought forward what I had done at the Wisconsin Counties Association Conference. The wording says regarding sales tax. Actually, that wordage should say, I voted no on a resolution regarding the levy freeze. So if you would, please make that correction.
Any other discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor with the correction signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. County Executives Report. Let me turn your lectern back on.
Thank you, Chairman. Three things I wanted to talk about tonight. One was Resolution 105-09-2022 from last board meeting. I considered but decided not to veto this resolution that will limit the debate on the floor of the board to 2 minutes. I do have some concerns. To be clear, I agree with the spirit of the resolution to ensure we are conducting business in an efficient and timely manner. However, I'm concerned that this resolution sends the wrong message to our board and the general public as a whole. I fully realize the board rules are not my responsibility. I also realize that this rule may affect my department head's ability to make solid arguments for the policies they are trying to get approval for. I'm concerned that the 2-minute time rule is mandatory and not discretionary of the chair. I'm concerned that the leave of the rule is to the vote of the entire board and not the decision of the chair. The chair currently has the power to keep supervisors on task and encourage you to get to the point. But I think we should also have a bigger discussion on public administration and policies best practices to decrease the length of these meetings. There are administrative functions that are extending these meetings. There have been meetings where we have not seen a resolution considered until well after an hour after the meeting starts. There are ways to do consent agendas to make things go quicker. There are resolutions considered that should be addressed at the committee level and allowed to be executed. We have lease agreements and small grants that are handled administratively in most counties. Administration and organizational structure can indeed help the process to be more informed and more efficient. I would encourage you to use the office of the county executive as well as our director of administration. We are here to serve you and answer your questions. If you ever have any questions on anything, we would be more than happy to take your calls ahead of time or even schedule a meeting to sit down with you and discuss a topic. We can answer a lot of your questions ahead of time and be able to investigate and find the answers we may not know. It is impossible for anyone to know all the answers. That is not a realistic assumption for any of you or any of us. If this board and our administration are willing to work together, we can and will improve our collective knowledge. There are times where you ask questions that we were not thinking of, and it helps the process. I fully support robust debate, especially when the topic warrants it. Under this rule, I question how long a department head or other elected official can take to answer the question. Under Robert's rule, your time is ceded to whoever you ask the question. Technically, the 2-minute rule time frame would be for the question and the answer. A 10-minute time limit already exists in Robert's rules. I've been assured by Chairman Egan that he will allow our department heads to answer your questions, and I'm grateful for that, and I hope none of you will object to that decision. 21 of our supervisors have served less than 2 terms. An adjustment period was foreseeable. Eventually, you will engage more at the committee level. I know how hard it is to follow 17 committees. Eventually, new supervisors will learn what is relevant to the conversation as what is tangential. And I view this rule as a long-term solution for a short-term issue. I know this because I learned it myself. It took me a while to realize what was my lane and what was not. It took me a while to learn how to navigate policy debate and how to ask questions and who to ask the questions of ahead of time. It took me a while to prepare my thoughts and comments. As you can see, I am reading this message from a prepared statement, one that I have edited multiple times until I believe it expressed what I was truly trying to say. When I first came to these meetings, I would shoot from the hip based on a few notes scribbled on paper. And I truly appreciate the flexibility of the past Chairman Ramos, who gave me time and grace to figure out how I needed to lead. The most important reason I considered vetoing this resolution is the spirit of debate. There will come a time when a policy decision demands a long and meaningful discussion. A decision will come across your desk that can fundamentally change the lives of our citizens. We shouldn't have to suspend the rules for such a debate. And I welcome the civil discourse in making such a decision. And I will stay with you until the early morning hours if necessary. If I were to name one issue causing these meetings to run long, it would be lack of trust. We tend not to trust our fellow supervisors. We tend not to trust the committees. We tend not to trust the administration. And most importantly, our citizens in the process tend not to trust us. If we are to lead Winnebago County into the future, we must establish trust in our citizens, each other, the process, and the administration. Trust is paramount to our ability to govern. We need to find a way to start trusting each other. The next topic is the budget. The budget process is coming near an end, and I want to thank you all for your questions and your engagement so far. As servant leaders, this is the most important process we will be involved in all year. I proposed a budget focused on our people and the people that we serve. I proposed a budget that will help retain and recruit a workforce who are dedicated to serving our citizens in the best way we can. All departments hit their budget targets of no new levy while finding 4% for our people. On top of that, I budgeted $2 million in our labor contingency fund to prepare for action when the wage study comes back. The wage study is well underway. The question is, will we be willing to invest in its results? There are two proposals, or I am proposing another year of equalized property tax reduction in 2023, dropping 43 cents to 423. Our citizens need the relief. I am also proposing to leave $250,000 of the tax levy on the table, so we will no longer be taxed to the max. We will be able to claim this next year and subsequent years following, but the $250,000 from this year we will never have again. That is money we can afford to give back to our citizens this year. We have been taxed to the max for a long time. This will give our citizens a much-needed break in their tax bills, as well as give us room for any levy calculation errors that we may have in the future. There are two amendment decisions that I'm going to lead to the board that I support of, but a decision that I think we need to make together. One is for a building study through our facilities department. $300,000 to find out what the shape of our buildings are and how efficient they truly are. This will help us find energy savings and help us to plan long-term for fiscal responsibility in the county. The other amendment is for a deputy health director position. In this budget, I made the decision to remove the equity and policy supervisor in public health to fund the educator position in the UW extension. A simple policy decision to figure out how we could afford a position left by Mandy Dorfield. After further consideration, I am in support of a deputy for health director to help facilitate more coordination between public health and other departments and stakeholders throughout the county. COVID has overshadowed other crucial work that our public health does in our community. And I want to remind you, they do a lot more than just COVID. With the opioid crisis, lead abatement, hunger, and other basic needs to be identified and planned for, this position will help us tackle these issues in a more comprehensive way, and it has my full support when it comes up for discussion. Lastly, I want to talk about the ARPA Commission. The ARPA Strategy and Outcome Commission has brought forward a decision tonight. In a 6-2 vote, we passed a resolution to accept the ARPA fund in its entirety as replacement of lost revenue. I want to stress this is not a maneuver to simply put the money into our operating fund. We still intend to distribute this money in the spirit of ARPA. Here are the reasons and concerns of why this recommendation was brought forward. Number one, with federal emergency dollars, past practices have been to distribute the funds, then audit and claw it back at a later date. Countless communities have seen this done with FEMA dollars. Millions given in an emergency to be demanded back later. I fear any project that is interpreted differently in the future will be vulnerable to this maneuver in the years to come, leaving us vulnerable and whatever nonprofit we partner with vulnerable. Claiming these funds as lost revenue is completely legal, follows the federal rules and regulation, and will be easy to audit and show compliance. Two, by claiming this as lost revenue, we are no longer restricted by the 2026 timeline to expend the funds. If we choose, we will be able to fund a land and water conservation effort for decades, making a real difference in our land and our water quality in the future, something that Supervisor Fari proposed. The effects of these monies will be a burden on our citizens for a generation. Any investment we make with this should show returns for the same amount of time. Legacy investments need to be the focus. Third and final thought here. This takes state and federal interest out of the process. The grant agreement with the state for the Neighborhood Improvement Fund has been laborious and frustrating. The rules have changed many times, as well as the requirements to report. We have spent countless hours with Corporation Counsel, as well as outside legal counsel to facilitate this. The reason we keep hearing from them is they are overworked and understaffed. The federal government is no better off. Just this month, we've seen activity from NACO supporting legislation for more funding to facilitate the ARPA dollars. They also do not have enough staff to administer these funds. We received an email from the Secretary of the Treasury claiming they can no longer answer our questions because they are out of funds. We currently have a homeless shelter being built that had to take out a short-term loan to fund their project because we cannot get the state to get the money to us in time. In conclusion, it is my recommendation to claim all of our ARPA dollars as lost revenue. The clearest way forward with the least amount of risk. Again, we still intend to spend these funds in the spirit of ARPA. Thank you.
Supervisor Norton, did you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Last week, I got an email from NACO that said that our county was eligible to be part of the Treasury Department Local Assistance and Tribal Contingency Fund program, which is a program where I checked, we are eligible for $50,000 both in 2022 and 2023. And then I found out at the WCA leadership call meeting yesterday that we can use these funds in almost any way we want, except we can't use it for lobbying purposes. But the deadline to apply for these funds, which we're eligible because we have jurisdiction over federal lands, is January 31st. And my pretty blank question is, do we plan on applying to get these funds?
The answer is we will consider it as administration. Do we have the staff and the work power to do it? So that it's a decision that we are aware of, and we'll bring forward whatever decision we make.
So when can I expect an answer on that? Because not every county got this in this state, and it's $100,000, and you have mentioned some projects where this money could go towards, and that's why I bring it up. So that's, thank you. And I bring it up now because I don't know how many of my colleagues get NACO's emails, but I got this last week. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. County Executive Damel, you mentioned as part of the budget that we'll be reviewing soon that there were two things that you would like to be included that are not included in your budget right now. One of them being a building study at $300,000 and the second being a deputy health director position. What is the anticipated cost of that position?
We are getting the numbers ready for the budget resolution. We are predicting it will be in a grade 28.
What? Tell me what that means in dollars.
Sure. May I defer that to the Director of Administration?
Yes. As soon as I try to button here.
I know I've seen a workup of the costs involved from the.
Want to use your mic, please, Mike?
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I know I've seen a workup of the costs involved from the HR director. We didn't have yet the office costs, the cost of a new computer and so forth that needed to be added. I just want to see if I can find that. Here it is. And the projected total labor costs, $125,000 roughly, including salary and benefits, of course.
Okay, thank you for that. So that's $425,000.
Correct.
Not currently included.
Correct.
In the executive's budget. And there's $250,000 leftover usable levy dollars. So we're at a deficit then.
We are not at a deficit.
Well, with that from the 425 though. Yes, because 250.
It's a requirement for the budget to be balanced.
Yes, I
So
understand.
that would be an ask out of the general fund, which is way above and beyond the level that it should be. And why we're only bonding for $6 million this year, because it's the directive of a policy of the board rule that we're supposed to spend down by half. So it would be available in the general fund.
Okay, so you'd be looking for a request from the general fund then?
Correct.
My question was, how do you propose to fund that? So, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
I'm kind of giving leeway. I know Mary Ann's always said, don't let him ask any questions. That's not on the agenda. So, but I'm giving leeway because he brought up the budget. So.
Yep. Correct.
Supervisor Bender.
When I was at the convention, I was talking to other supervisors, and whoever I sat next to and asked them about how they did their ARPA funds, if any of them took all their funds for lost wages, and they all told me that they didn't even think that was legal. And my biggest concern is maybe like in 2027, all of a sudden the federal government's going to tell us it's not legal and that we owe them $33 million. Have you heard of any county taking all their ARPA funds and using it this way? I mean, I don't, if it's legal and we can do it, I'm all for it. But if we're not 100% sure that we can do this, and you know how the government is, in 2027, all of a sudden they send you a letter saying, no, you can't do it like that, you owe us $33 million. And now we lost all that money. You know, we have probably at least $20 million worth of good projects ready to go forward. I could even see doing like $15 or $20 million, but doing the whole $33 million, I just hate to jeopardize that whole fund. When you know other county execs, do you know any other county exec that is taking the whole ARPA fund and doing it the way we're going to do it?
I know you're probably not going to hear this, but Washington County. Yes, he said it was the smart way to do it. Josh said that was the absolute way to do it, the smartest way forward to protect your assets. It is completely illegal. It is their calculations. And we did bring it up with the auditors, and they had said, especially with as lean as our finance department is, we don't have the staff to do the reporting in the future that it's going to be deemed through the ARPA process. We will have to hire more staff just to spend this money. I do trust our administration on this decision. We thought about this long and hard. This was not an easy call.
It's not that I don't trust our administration.
Yep.
I don't trust the federal government that basically, like they told you, they can't answer your questions. And all of a sudden they say, no, that's not the way that you can do it. And when they tell you you owe them $33 million, you owe them $33 million.
I share the same sentiment. That is why we're proposing that we claim it all as lost revenue now.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Table, did you say it's completely illegal? That the guy-
Legal.
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 Okay, sorry.
Supervisor Cox.
How did I get on this?
Well, you're lit, and then you went out. I didn't know if you still had a question or not.
No, I canceled that about
Okay.
2 sentences ago. Thank you.
All right. I see no one else. I thank you very much.
All right.
His appointments.
All right. We do have an appointment today for Director of Finance. I'd like to make an appointment for Paul Kaiser. His resume is attached. Paul is here today. He's in the back of the room. He is a little drowsy. He had the same surgery that our sheriff just got over. So they had a nice conversation. And Sheriff understands that Paul has not had a lot of great sleep lately. But he wanted to be here to meet all of you.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Motion made and seconded for approval. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried.
Thank you all.
Okay, for my report, what we're going to do, as long as we're on the budget a little bit, is I'm going to have Mike Collard speak to you. It isn't on the agenda, so I put it on mine for Director of Administration. And you'll see these yellow sheets that are on your desk. You want to hand this to Mike? He probably didn't get one.
I go.
Oh, do you? Okay. and he's going to tell you a little bit. There's some questions. I know I'm getting questions that about the budget book and everything else and how you can go about doing resolutions and everything else. So Mike's going to fill you in on that right now to get you started.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can just speak to that from here, I think. Regarding the annual budget hearing, which starts Halloween night, I just want to explain the process very briefly and answer any questions you may have about the process, especially the process for submitting proposed amendments to the budget. So the way the budget works is, up to this point, the budget has been the executives, and the budget book you have on the desk today represents the county executive's budget, proposed budget. According to statute, it's the county executive's duty to propose a budget, which is entirely up to him in terms of that process. We've published notice of that budget. We've done the legal requirements. Now it's falling into the board's lap, and it's going to become your budget for 2023. So the process is we start out with a hearing on Monday evening, last Monday in October normally. I think we might have occasionally done the first Monday in November. But it's the 31st, starting at 6 o'clock, the normal time. And the first part of the budget session is presentation of the budget. So the county executive will introduce each department's budget, department by department, budget by budget. We kind of try to go in the order that's in the book, but not always, depending on some scheduling issues that may come up. And the department head will then be here, and you can ask any questions you may have regarding that individual budget for that department. And some departments have more than one budget because of the different funds involved. So that'll be your opportunity to ask questions. It's certainly not your only opportunity, but that's the formal one as part of the budget hearing. And that will take whatever amount of time it takes. And so usually we don't get that done Monday evening. We go into Tuesday. Depending on how long it takes, we may or may not get done by a certain time on Tuesday. But we'll take the time that's needed for that. And then after the budget is all presented, then it's up to the board to propose any amendments that you may wish to make. So the yellow form we have here is our budget amendment form. If you have an amendment you'd like to consider, there are several steps really to the process. And I would suggest the first step, which is not mandatory, is that if you have a concern or you think there's a need for a change that you've identified, I'd encourage you to talk to whatever member of administration is most familiar. We had a department heads meeting today of all the department heads. They're all very willing and aware of the need to confer with any county board member that may have an issue regarding their budget, whether it's to add something, subtract something, whatever it may be. Depending on the circumstances, I would encourage you to talk to the department head and or talk to me and or talk to John or whoever else you may want to get information about, because I have, over the course of my career, I've seen very many amendments proposed that, when they got to the floor, didn't necessarily make sense or weren't really crafted correctly to achieve what the supervisor wanted it to achieve. So that's, as department heads, that's our role, is to help you formulate it correctly so that it'll do what you want it to do. So we will need then you to fill out a form with the proposed amendment. This is a form that was used last year because it was by Zoom, so they were all done by computer. I do plan to make a hard copy version of this form that you can use at the meeting and write out by hand if that's your preference to do, or if something comes up later on that you wish to address that you hadn't had time to get on your computer for. We do need to know what you propose to change about the budget, how much money to add, how much money to subtract, and it all does have to balance. So you have to have a particular place the money is coming from and a particular place the money is going, and we need, division, department, object accounts, and amounts for each of those. So you may very well need help identifying the particular accounts that it would be affected by your motion, by your proposed amendment. When you fill these out, then they come to me or to Assistant Finance Director. Carol is in the back. Many of you know Carol Blackmore. The Finance Department needs to review to make sure we put on the correct numbers for the correct accounts, just again to make sure we're effectuating your intent. And then it goes to the Corporation Counsel's office, and they write it up for official submission to the board. So after we're done with that, then amendments are introduced in turn, and of course the county board will have normal debate and votes on each motion, on each proposed amendment, and passed by a majority at this point, not a 2/3, as most budget amendments later in the process are done. And then they're incorporated into a resolution that adopts the proposed budget for 2023 as amended. So that's pretty much the process, and if you have any questions, certainly be glad to address that.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question for you, Mr. Chairman, is, am I correctly thinking that this year we're going to go back like we did in past years, other than the last 2 years, meaning whether we finish the budget presentation at 11:47 or whatever odd time, that maybe 10, 20 minutes after that, we will start voting on both amendments and the budget itself, unlike where the last 2 years we specified that the voting on any budget amendments or any budget itself would take place at night. Am I correctly thinking that it's more like pre-2020?
I would say we'd be going back. I haven't heard anyone say any different, so it'd be just, as long as the budget's going on, we'll keep right on going until we're done.
Okay.
I don't mean all night long. I mean,
Well, no,
say if we
I
get
just,
done at
you know,
3 and people are ready to vote at that time or whatever, then they'll
well,
be
I
done.
kind of favor the other way, but I'll bow your will. I mean, you know, we have people who need to know that because we've had people in the past miss budget amendment votes and the budget itself vote, and I don't think they should miss because, you know, a budget amendment only needs a majority to pass, and that's why I'm just making sure we have that clarified right now and not then. Okay, thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I'll be fair to everyone. It don't really matter to me if you want to say, I don't know when you're going to say that we'll vote then. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock?
Well, I'm just saying the last couple of years, and I know it was under a different chairman, I think we designated Wednesday, well, I'm sorry, let me back up. I think 1 year was a week later, and another, I think last year was Wednesday of the same week. And that's, it's up to you. I'm just make sure we all have that clarified in our minds. Thank you.
Some of it, not necessarily, it was a different chairman, that is correct, but a lot of that had to go with COVID also. So I'll just have a show of hands. How many wants to have the budget hearing and keep going? And if we're done at 3, we do the voting, or do you want to have a set time to do voting? Anyone have any feelings on it particular, or they want to just keep on going? What is the feelings of the rest of them? You can call in, and I got calls right here now, but I'm asking, what is the feelings of the board, and then whatever the majority says is the way we'll go. What would you like to have a set time that we're going to do all the voting on after the budget discussion, or would you like to just keep going on the budget? When we're done and reach that point, we do the vote. Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think I have an opinion on that just yet because I'm not at all familiar with the process, but looking at the schedule that is presented for that week, we start at 8:30 in the morning on Tuesday, November 1st. And so my question is, how long do we anticipate to be here each of those days?
It's usually 3, 4 o'clock, depending on, say, because like all the heads of departments will come in and have something to say. If there's not a lot of questions, you go faster. If there's a lot of questions, it takes longer. So it's hard to say, but usually 3, 4 o'clock, it's adjourned.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Cox.
I've been to a couple of these, and I find if you do your amendments at the end of the sessions of calling through each one of the budgets to identify or to pick up, you know, loose ends in the budget, you do your amendments at the end on the third or fourth day, and whatever you've got for amendments can usually be pulled together within the first 4 hours or maybe a little longer. Does that sound right?
That's correct.
Why wouldn't you want to just maintain the organization of a step
I have no
into?
problems. It was brought up, and I know it's been brought up other years, and so that's why I'm asking. I can work it either way.
I think it's a good organization. I think a step through defining a budget as you go and then put your amendments at the end would be a really good idea.
Then just keep right on going. In other words, if we're done at 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
Well, you're going to have some breaks.
Oh, yes, I don't mean
Or
that. I mean, but
lunch
you keep on
break or
going.
whatever.
If we're done on Tuesday afternoon and people are ready to vote, we don't have to wait till Wednesday at 4 o'clock.
Right,
Is that what you're saying?
right.
Okay. Supervisor Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I kind of agree with the, if we're ready to vote, let's say it's earlier, that'd be great. I still think if it is a particular day, though, having a set time that we know that the vote will be happening I think, would be the best option for many of us who are working, obviously, throughout the day as well. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I just want to remind everybody, we have that calendar full on there. It looks like we could go all the way into Thursday or Friday. We just did that because you got to remember there's court held in here. So we wanted to make sure that this room is reserved for us. This has already been done by Tuesday. We've had the whole budget already done. So just so you all know that. Supervisor Fari, or Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would have a tendency to assume that after we're finished with going through the departments and the budget, we would take perhaps at the call of the chair an hour or so to gather our thoughts, put our resolutions together, and continue.
Thank you. Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is sort of like what you and I had spoken about before the meeting, when we're talking about how long these meetings can go on. My first year as a supervisor, I poured over the budget thing. I had legal pad, page after page after page of questions and stuff. That takes a lot of time. After that, I realized I can talk to the department heads before budget time, get my questions answered, and we could really make this a lot shorter. I only ever had one department head who said to me, well, I've already talked to Executive Harris, I've already gone over this, I don't need to talk about it. I said, well, yes, but now I have to vote on it, so would you answer my question? And she did. So, don't be put off. You have a right, you have an obligation. If something you see in the budget that doesn't make sense to you or you're questioning, call the department head and get it figured out. We don't just spend meeting time during the budget week to do that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and that's what Director Administrator Collins just had also said, so. Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd also like to confirm that as the rules state right now, the 2-minute limit would apply within this budget session, unless we suspend that, as well as voting privileges. So right now, if we want to vote on an amendment, we would have to be physically present in our seat unless we as a body vote to suspend that rule during the session. And it's my understanding from Corporation Counsel that we can do so, but we do that the first day of the session. But then I assume that only those who are here can actually vote on that.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do it by Zoom.
Right. So I just want to make sure that's clear for everyone as well as they're thinking about their work schedule and Halloween, trying to do a family and work and this. There are other options as well, but we should think that through before the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you. Well, very quick last point. The reason why I guess I'm pushing for a specific time is not just for our benefit, but also for the public, for transparency. I mean, someone's going to propose an amendment at whatever time on a Tuesday or Wednesday at a certain odd time. When and where can the public comment on that? Now, if we had a time set, I don't care if it's 8 o'clock a.m. or 3 p.m. or 6 p.m., the public would know that, hey, this is when the county board will actually be talking about the amendments and the budget itself and voting on it. That's why I don't plan to have you make a decision tonight, Mr. Chairman, but I think that's something that the 36ers think about come October 31st or even sooner. Like I say, one of my main concerns was the 3 members of the board, but also about the transparency and making sure the public has a right to be heard on the budget and the amendments themselves. Thank you.
Well, we'll do it tonight on how we're gonna do it. So if somebody wants to make a motion one way or another, and we'll vote on it and go from there.
Well, I thought about making a motion or a resolution, and to tell you the truth, Mr. Chairman, I know I tried last year, and I was told that I couldn't do it. It's your decision, and that's why I didn't do it.
And I said, I'll open it up. If somebody wants to do it, if nobody wants to do it, it'll stay as is.
Well, I've been waiting making the motion, I just don't want to get ruled out of order by the Corporation Council.
Well, they can do that, can't they?
It's your decision. You can say, all in favor of continuing on, all in favor of, and then just take it home.
Okay. Supervisor Albrecht.
I would like to move that we proceed with with the amendments for the resolutions right after the budget session. I mean, right after that proceeding.
Did you hear what he said? I'm not taking.
After the executive presents it, after that, after he's done, they can give them like an hour's time, and then we proceed with it. It's the way that's the way we've done it for years that I can remember.
I'm not taking that as the motion because we can't, but did you all hear what he said?
No.
No? No. Can you say it again, David, in your microphone? This won't be a motion because you can't do a motion on it.
I would like to see us approve with the amendments right after the executive has presented his budget and the department heads.
So, that's what we're going to vote on right now.
And
It's
that's
not a
the way
motion.
we have done it through the years. I realize you can change, but
So all those in favor of doing it that way signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. It's going to be kept that way. So it'll be going right on. We'll just keep right on going. All right. Get my glasses back here so I can see. I guess my next thing is here. I would like to call up Dr. Joshua Belleville up here. Belleville? You would come up here. Belleville? After much discussion and consideration, there was 4 candidates that applied for this position. And I know you're going to ask, why am I down here? Well, number one, I don't feel as I'm better than any one of you, and I always hate it when somebody was being sworn in up upon looking down on everyone. I'm the same as every one of you guys sitting there and whoever gets to be this. But Vice Chairman Fowrie and I received all the either emails or letters or whatever, went through them all. Then we also met with all 4 of them, and face-to-face, all the way from Thursdays all the way till Sunday mornings we met with one. So after much consideration that, and after watching the poor football game, I made my choice, and tonight I would like to go ahead and have for your approval Joshua Belleville. But I'd like to have him say a few words first, because I had quite a few of you come up and say, well, who is this guy? Well, I said, better have him tell you than me. So, Joshua?
Hello, everybody. My name is Josh Belleville, and I just appreciate all of you being here tonight, and I thank the chairman and vice chairman for meeting with me over the weekend on short notice. And then I also appreciate Dia, who just left, but she helped me set up my iPad this morning, and that was very helpful. And then Julie over here, she helped me out big time because I had a lot of questions before I showed up here, and she just stood there and took all of them for me, and then gave me a large packet before I got here. So, you just can't forget those people that really just guide you, and they helped me out, and then Dia and Julie helped me out, and that means a lot to me. And it also means a lot to the people who shook my hands and said hello to me before I got here. It's kind of nice to just kind of feel like you have a family already, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure a lot of you are wondering why I'm here. I know Bob Peschel, that was his role, and I got big shoes to follow in, and I don't take that lightly. I had a chance to work with him in growing Oshkosh, and he was only there for a brief period of time, and he spoke well. He was a critical thinker. He listened, and he was open-minded, and if I can be half the man he was at the end of my term, I think that'll be a pretty big success for me. So that's a lot for me, and I appreciate him taking the time to allow me this spot, and I wish him all the best in that position that he takes. But my whole life, I have spent serving people. In college, I spent a lot of time in many clubs. I was president. I did budgets in college, so I kind of have an idea of how that stuff works. Obviously, this is a much bigger platform, but I'm not new to that kind of work. And I'm a chiropractor, so my profession is serving. My whole life, I feel like I have been serving, and this role is service, and that's just what I've always wanted to do in this life. I hate going home to watch TV. I hate scrolling through my phone, and I just got bored, and I thought, what can I do that's bigger? And this showed up, and I thought, this is perfect timing for me. My life is going well, and I really want to take my extra time to be in this room and work with you guys. So thanks a lot, and I hope to work with all of you. Thanks.
That was a nice speech, but now we got to get him to approve you. So at this time, I would like to have someone make a motion to approve Dr. Joshua Belfield for District 19 County Board seat. Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. And now we'll say the oath. We'll just step over here. Raise your right hand, please. I, Joshua Belfield,
I, Joshua Belfield,
have been appointed to the County Board of Supervisors,
have been appointed to the Board of County Supervisors,
District 19,
District 19,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office
discharge the duties of said office
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thanks a lot.
It was quite interesting. We had all different ones. We had 3 men and a lady, and they all had different aspects. Anyone probably could have filled in, but you have to take sometimes, you got to overlook certain things in that, and I think Josh will do a very good job for us. And Josh, when he come in, he wasn't ready to jump into any committees, and I know this was a big thing when you're going to get these new people on these committees. Well, he wasn't. He said he wanted to sit back and learn. He wanted to see what's going on rather than jumping into something. So at this time, these other ones that I've appointed are only on one committee or not very big committees. So I've appointed to the American Rescue Plan, the ARP Commission, to Supervisor Andy Buck.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. The IT Supervisor Jacob Flom.
So moved.
Made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. And Parkview Health Center Committee Supervisor Jim Posner.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Carried. I thank you all. And make sure and stop over and see, he likes to go by Josh. So make sure we're mixing and say hi to him. The only other thing, I want to go back on budget just for a minute because I did talk to someone and it was brought up here a couple times tonight. I'm going to bring it up again. Don't be afraid to call your heads of department heads, Mike down here, anybody on that budget session. If you got a question, everything will go a lot faster than what if we got to sit and talk about things and it don't make sense. You got to find out about it ahead of time. The other thing.
One last question.
I gotta,
There is no Tuesday government day with the kids anymore, right?
I don't think there is. I've got to ask the county executive, but from what I understand, there is no
It's
more.
Thursday, I thought. Okay.
County executive, there is no more days with the kids, county government days for us as far as county board.
Thursday will. Right. It's not Tuesday, right?
But Thursday, do we meet with them? Do we eat with them or anything? I was underneath the understanding we weren't anymore.
No, I think we will. I think that's the point, is we want to make sure it's interactive with as many people as possible. So I would assume that lunches would still be county board members meeting with the kids. Am I wrong with that?
I heard that it wasn't going to be this year.
Well,
And so we'll have to get out a notice to you to let you know, because I was underneath the understanding it wasn't going to be, and I just wanted to clarify it.
yeah, we've staff has been working with the Legion to make it more engaging this year. So it's still a work in progress.
So I'll have to have the clerks get out a notice to you and go from there, because I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I was told it wasn't going to be with us anyways. So that brings up a good point. If we don't go to eat with them, I guess everybody will just be on their own. They'll take an hour break or whatever, and you'll just all have to be on your own and go from there. Okay, zoning reports. Mandatory ordinance number. Oops, I'm sorry. Supervisor Albert.
Seeing that we won't be meeting with them, more than likely, I suppose the executive will be providing pizzas for lunch, because they always provided lunch.
He's shaking his head yes. I don't know what that means, so.
Is it legal?
Zoning reports and ordinances, mandatory ordinance number 10-01-22. Justin and Kayla Pucker, Town of Black Wolf, zoning from A2 general farming to R1 rural residential for tax parcel 0040203-02. Supervisor Estera.
22.
Motion made and seconded. Supervisor Cox, you have a question?
No, I was trying to second it.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carry. Mandatory ordinance number 10-02-22. Victoria Paul, Town of Black Wolf, rezoning from A2 general farming to R1 rural residential for tax parcel number 004032007. Supervisor Estero.
Approve the mandatory ordinance number 10/02/22.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Mandatory ordinance number 10-03-22. Fred Werner, Town of Black Wolf, rezone A2 general farming to R1 rural residential for tax parcel number 004032006. Supervisor Sestera.
I make a motion to approve the mandatory ordinance 10/03/22.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Mandatory ordinance number 10-04-22, Storage in Black Wolf LLC, Town of Black Wolf, rezoning from B2 Community Business to B3 General Business for tax parcel number 004004502. Supervisor Estera.
I make a motion to approve the mandatory ordinance number 10/04/22.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 107. Okay, it's something I didn't remember now. Here, we're going to start this 2-minute drill, but remember, it's going to be two minutes that you have. Give us a little break, because the girls it's going to be first time for them too. So if it goes 2 minutes and 10 seconds, don't get all excited, because they got to push buttons at the same time. So we're gonna try it, see what happens. So, so like if you got 2 minutes, during a resolution, you need to speak, and then they go ahead and somebody else comes up, I'll call on them, but then you get another 2 minutes to call back. So there's plenty of time that you'll get to call if it's, if you want somebody to come up and answer a question, we'll have them come up, but it's not part of your 2 minutes. So and if there's amendment, that'll start all over then again. So it's going to be complicated somewhat too, but, so we're starting the 2 minutes this time. So, all right, resolution number 107-10-2022, disallow claim of Brian Cumbier. Supervisor Cox.
I move to accept or disallow the claim of Brian Cumbier of 107-102-00 or 022.
Seconded by Vice Chairman Fari. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is it that we're denying? There are no details with this.
I believe his glasses got busted, and we had already had it at the P&F committee meeting and denied it. So that's why it's here.
His glasses were broken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution number 108-10-2022, awarding the sale of $6 million general obligation promissory note. Supervisor Cox.
I would like to approve the resolution 108-102-2022, the awarding of the sale of $6 million as a general obligation promissory note.
Do I hear a second?
No.
And it's seconded. Did you want anyone to come up and talk about it, or are you going to give a little report on it?
No.
Here he comes.
Terms of the note.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see everyone tonight. So yeah, I handed out a packet for everyone that I'll run through tonight. So today we went out for the bond sale, so this is a follow-up to the presentation that we gave about a month ago, talking about the financing. So over the last several months, the administration team, Mike, Carol, the county executive, we've been busy looking at different scenarios and financing illustrations and so forth. And today is kind of the culmination of all that work that's taken place over the last couple of months. So as I run through this, please stop me if you have any questions. So if you look at page 2 of the presentation, this is a general obligation promissory note in the amount of $6 million. This issuance is going to close November 10th of 2022. The maturities are April 1, 2023 to 2032, so starting next year. It's a 10-year financing. It is callable October 1 of 2029 or any date thereafter, meaning on that particular day you can refinance it, pay it off, restructure it, etc., giving you that flexibility. The county was affirmed the AA1 bond credit rating, so an excellent bond credit rating. Myself, the county executive, the administration team, all participated on that call, talked about how great Winnebago County is, the finances and so forth, and they saw that and affirmed the strong AA1 bond credit rating. And the report of that is in the back of your packet. The final interest rate is a 3.80%. So yes, interest rates have gone up over the last couple of years, but you've seen that all over the news. You've seen it in mortgage rates. You've seen it. Interest rates have just gone up in general. So when you look at the next page, page 3, this is the long-term capital improvement borrowing plan that we have laid out for the county. On the left side of the page, that's the existing debt service payments that the county has outstanding. You know, one of the goals that we have with this is to use the reserves that we have available to meet the policy, so reduce the borrowing as much as we can for the policy, but at the same time manage the debt service mill rate. We don't necessarily want to see it drop and then go back up once another capital project comes up. So this long-term plan really takes that into account of not only this year's borrowing, but potentially future capital improvement borrowings in the future if they so occur. The goal here was to structure the financing for a debt service levy impact in 2023 to be a 3-cent reduction. So not only are you getting the projects done that you need to and funding those projects, but you're also at the same time managing the mill rate and also having a drop in that debt service mill rate because of your growth that you've seen in the county. So the plan is in really good position and allows us to be flexible year over year, looking at that reserve policy and applying money when we can. So the last several pages, this is the Moody's rating report. I won't go through this in detail. This can be your good bedtime reading material, but it really highlights why the county received the AA1 bond credit rating. It highlights the good reserves that the county has built up. It also mentions that the county has very little debt for a county your size, and so all these things, these different factors, play into why the county received the AA1. So congratulations, and have any questions?
Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could someone from the PNF committee please tell me what the vote was? I see it's left blank.
Supervisor Cox, can you tell him what the vote was?
It was 4-0 at the time.
Wonderful, thank you.
Not seeing another question? Oops, I do too. Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question, and I'm just going to claim ignorance on this because I'm not super familiar with bond issuances. But is this interest rate locked in, or is it subject to change over time?
It's a fixed rate.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Not seeing any else. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
For coming tonight. Resolution number 109-10-2022, authorize. Oh, I'm sorry, you got to vote on that, don't you? Yeah, there was a second. Yep. Yep, now I got to vote. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Authorize, resolution number 109-10-2022, authorize Winnebago County to accept the second tranche of state and local fiscal recovery funds established by the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, in the amount of $16,695,459. Supervisor Fari.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Seconded by Supervisor Ellenberger. Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to be able to vote for this. It's a ripoff of the American people. And I'll tell you how this scam works. You start with a crisis, either natural or created by man. Use the media to hype the crisis and create fear. You do everything in your power to convince the people that you have the solution. Make it easier for them to swallow by giving them little bribes. Just a portion going back to the people. Congress then passes a bill to take the people's money. Much of the money goes to special interests who funnel it back to the politicians who pass the law. It's money laundering. Some of the money comes back to the local government, but the federal government mandates what you can and cannot do. It's big government control. The more they can centralize the power and the more control they have over the people. Our system was built from the bottom up, but the people on the top want to control everything from the top down. Then after all this, we the people have to pay back our own money that was taken away with interest through taxes. It's a con of trillions of dollars. Thank you.
Supervisor Defferting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will also be voting no on this. I've voted no in the first time that we accepted the money, and I will vote no on this one as well. I think that this is going to create a fiscal cliff for Winnebago County in 20 or 30 years. What will happen is that eventually the money will run out, and we will have to find ways to continue on for maintaining all of these pet projects that I'm sure everyone is waiting at the trough for this. And so then we would either have to look at finding other grants from the United States government, which is, I guess possible, or we could not get that, and then we're going to have to look at possibly raising taxes for things that are already existing in the county that were created by this additional $16.7 million. Per what we had one of our residents say, we have to live within our means here, and we have not shown in any way, shape, or form in the county that we've actually sustainably lost revenue during the pandemic. So this is just funny money, and I can't, in good conscience, vote for this. Thank you.
Supervisor Posner.
Yes, I'm from District 18, and Mr. Walker's from that district, and he expressed how he did not like it. But for the record, in the last 3 weeks, I've had more people wanting the money, when are we going to get it, but they all have their own way of spending it, which we have no idea how we're going to do that. But first, to get the money, I am voting for it. Thank you.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one I do struggle with. I am not going to vote for this. The biggest reason is a different perspective from Supervisor Defferting, which is the longer-term view, which I agree with, but there's also the shorter-term view. And that is that this money was created through monetary easing. And the monetary easing policy basically is we created money and then put it into the money supply, and it's kind of off on the side right now. You're seeing the impacts through inflation. And I struggle because we have a lot of great uses for these dollars, and I'm not going to dispute that. We could really do a lot of good with this. Where I struggle is the money we take will also hurt us. So it's almost like a poison pill. And I'm very concerned with how inflationary issues are impacting every single person in this county. So for that reason as well, both the long-term view and the short-term view, I'm not going to be supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I'd just like to say I will be supporting this. If we don't take this money, some other county is going to get the money. The money's going to be spent one way or the other. We can take it for our taxpayers, which we were elected to serve. We're here to represent the people of Winnebago County. And if we turn this money down, this $16 million, it's going to get given to another county, to another state, but the money is going to be spent. It's not like we can just say that to the federal government, you put this money back in the reserve because we don't want to spend it. No, that money's going to be spent. Like some of the townships didn't spend their ARPA money when we got it the first time and we bought computers, and that money went back into a fund, and the counties that spent more money than was allocated got a part of that money. That money was spent one way or the other. So if you want to tell your taxpayers that you're not going to take $16.5 million so that Outagamie County or Kewaunee County or another county in this state can have their money, go ahead, vote no. But one way or the other, this money is going to be spent. It's not going back to the reserve. It's going to be spent.
Supervisor Hanson.
I'm just encouraging more people to speak up because I continue to remain conflicted on how to vote. So for those both in favor and against, please speak forward because I'm undecided.
Supervisor Stafford.
Just want to make a clarification. The money doesn't get reallocated. It's not like if we accept it, it's not actually like Outagamie just picks up the money. That's not how this works. Just so we're all clear. Thank you.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to go ahead and dovetail off of what Supervisor Defferding said earlier. My main concern here is about possible unfunded mandates in the future, possible fiscal cliffs, and other clawbacks and other agreements that will have to be involved in the ARPA money with the federal government. And we don't know what the feds are going to do between now and the future. We have control over our own levy dollars. We don't have control, in reality, we don't have control over ARPA dollars, and nothing is free. So I'm going to vote no on this. I understand the reasoning as to why people vote yes on this, but personally, I'm just going to vote no. Thank you.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask the county executive to come up if you'd answer a few questions. I guess my question is that out of the other 72 counties and talking to your colleagues across the state of Wisconsin, have you heard of any other counties denying ARPA fund monies to this point?
I have not.
Well, I get that. That's. I have no further questions. Thank you, Executive Damel.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be voting yes. I encourage everybody to vote yes on this. Don't let people scare you with words that they don't know what they mean. Don't let people scare you into thinking that accepting this money is going to tie this county's hands. Ultimately, every dollar that gets spent has to be run through this board. If you're afraid that accepting this money will create a problem in 30 years because of the way we spend it, then choose wisely when we spend the money. This is about accepting it so that we can set a framework, so we can choose which projects we should fund. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Not seeing any other lights on? Yes. Oh, yes. Corporate Counsel has something that she wants to say here.
I just want to clarify that the vote for this, because it's again accepting of funds, it's not a transfer from the contingency, it's not creating new appropriations. The vote required for passage is majority. It is not 2/3. I apologize for the error. The same thing will apply for the next one as well, but we can go from there.
So 110 will also be majority? Corporate Counsel, 110 will also be?
Yes.
So they also, both will be majority, just so we remember. Okay. All right. Supervisor Hanson.
Just requesting this to be a roll call vote.
Okay. All right. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the county executive. Didn't you advocate when you gave your report that if we claim this as lost revenue, that this would, if we did go down that route, free us up from having to be told to by the state or the federal government what to do with the money?
She's asked, she don't believe that that's what this is about, so.
110 is about that.
Right. 110, it's the next one. Supervisor Norton. It'd be the
Okay,
next
I'll
one.
wait. Next time.
Yep. Not seeing any else, we'll do a roll call vote. If you're in favor of it, vote A. If you're against it, vote nay. And while you're all voting, I just wanted to tell you, all of you had plenty of time. You're way underneath your 2 minutes. And it passed, 27-9. Okay, Resolution 10, recognizing state and local fiscal recovery funds established by the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, in the amount of $33,390,918 as placement of lost public sector revenue, identifying general government expenditures as having been funded by this revenue. Hold on here. Supervisor Pari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve Resolution 110.
Seconded by Supervisor Ellenberger. Supervisor Cox.
I have a question having to do with 110. The list of a variety of projects that are already collected have not been glued to this movement of money into an account, and won't be until we meet as a committee, the ARPA committee, and select the projects that are going to be attached to the money. Is that correct?
I would say yes. I was in on the last committee meeting and there was nothing approved as of then for any certain thing. Am I correct?
So that list that I'm referring to, that you sent me, is still open, and we're not dealing with holding the money and then spending the money right away.
No, this has nothing to do with that.
Good.
The list is not, there's nothing on the records right now whatsoever.
I'm ready to vote.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a display, sir.
Okay.
How shall we do this?
Maybe over by Mary Ann.
Maybe by Mary Ann over there might be better.
Want me to hold it for you? Do you want me to hold it for you?
Yeah, could you? Thank you. Resolution 110 asks this county board to approve allocating all Winnebago County's $33 million ARPA funds to replacing lost income. I suggest this ask is premature. U.S. Treasury regulations cite 4 dates that replacement funds can be computed: December 31st, 2020, 2021, 2022, and December 31st, 2033, using a calendar cycle, or you could use a fiscal cycle. Resolution 110 is premised upon computation June 30th, 2020. Despite correspondence accepting a 6-month report, we still have 6 months of loss or gain to go. Of course, if you have read the memo that the Director of Administration had passed around, we still have 6 months to go. In summation, both U.S. Treasury overview of ARPA and Federal Register explicitly cite December 31st as replacement funds computation date. More documentation is needed to confirm the calculations are in conformity to ARPA regulations. Winnebago County has just appointed a new CPA finance director. The prudent way forward is to give this task to the new director and report back to the ARPA Commission and County Board. I move to refer Resolution 110 back to the ARPA Commission to be recomputed by the Finance Director, explaining each step in the computation process
Supervisor
and
Eisen.
resubmitted following December 31st, 2022.
Supervisor Eisen, I'll let you take your next 2 minutes if you want, and then you can finish up. If you want to do your second 2 minutes, you can and clean it all up right away. Oh, you're done?
I really don't have anything to say except
Good. So you're done then, Paul? Supervisor Eisen?
what we have is the resolution, we have the coronavirus and local fiscal recovery funds overview of the final rule issued by the Treasury Department. We have the Federal Register document showing that the dates for reporting, a request for public replacement funds, the 31st of December. And we have the Director of Finance's calculations indicating that they're counting 2022 at June 30th. In spite of that memo that you have, you still have 6 months to go to the end of the year. It's prudent to let our professional CPA get at this.
Question for
Thank
the
you.
speaker. Can we get a copy of your findings, Supervisor Eisen?
Pardon me?
Can we have a copy of your
you have a
findings, the
question?
work that you did?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You flatter me.
Supervisor Fari.
Point of order, did someone second his referral back to committee? That's my question.
Yes, Mr. Cox did.
Yes.
Cox.
Mr. Cox did.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Eisen, for your point of view and your research. However, I would like to ask Mr. Collard, who is the current financial director, at least part-time, to respond to this, because the ARPA Commission is highly, we are highly dependent upon your thoughts and your opinions in this issue. So if you would respond to that, I would appreciate it.
Certainly be glad to. I think Supervisor Eisen does raise, a valid point if you just read the regulation, and it's actually the course of action I tried to undertake to report the lost revenue for 2020 and 2021. But just to back up a bit, under the ARPA rules, under the Treasury guidance, I am required to file a quarterly report. Starting in January of 2022, every 3 months I'm required to file a report with the Treasury Department about the status of our ARPA funds. And the report has to be filed online. I don't just write up a report, I have to fill in blanks of an online form and provide explanations in the appropriate boxes and so forth. And when I did that in July for the second quarter, I noted that the form required me to make an election about designation of the funds as replacement for lost revenue. I was very familiar at that point with the formula they provide as to how to calculate your lost revenue. And to be perfectly honest, it's not necessarily a calculation designed to reflect reality in terms of what our actual lost revenue was. And we're talking about non-federal revenue, because obviously a lot of federal revenue came in as a result of the various legislation during the pandemic. So they excluded all the federal income. But the regulations made clear this is a formula you can use, and you can call that lost revenue, a replacement of lost revenue. So I'm not really saying we lost very much. We didn't lose $33 million in revenue. I'm saying that applying the formula the federal government gives us that says you can claim that as lost revenue. So I followed that. I calculated that for the first 2 years, 2020 and 2021. Comes to a little over $22 million. I tried to put that in my report and claim that as lost revenue, and it wouldn't let me file the report. It wouldn't let me file it because it required me to indicate the lost revenue for 2022 as well, even though the year obviously wasn't completed at that point. So I got on the phone, I sent emails, I spent weeks trying to get them to accept my report. And the bottom line was, after talking with several people there at the Treasury Department on the phone and exchanging numerous emails, they told me, and I requested that they confirm this in writing, and I left that on your desk, the final email, that I needed to prepare a good faith estimate and that they would accept my estimate of 2022 lost revenue on that basis. So I did that. I prepared a good faith estimate. It was not hard to do. It was very clear that we would have well over that amount by the time we were halfway through 2022. So I put it in on that basis because I thought that was more accurate. They would have been fine, frankly, if I had claimed 45 million or 50 million, which is the amount their formula would have produced by the end of 2022. I'm confident, just knowing what our revenue patterns are. So I'm very confident that no one will question that the application of the formula to Winnebago County will produce a result that is in excess of the 33 million. There's really no doubt whatsoever about that. In fact, over 70% of counties are claiming the entire amount as lost revenue nationwide. So given that direction from the Treasury Department, that they've instructed me in writing to prepare an estimate based on what I expect the lost revenue would be according to their formula for 2022, I have no hesitation in saying we can proceed on that basis because that's the direction I've specifically been given by the Treasury Department. So I can prepare a new estimate after 2022 is over, and if there's a material variance, I can correct our report online, and I'll do that. But I have 0% probability that we will end up with less than the full 33 million that can be properly allocated to lost revenue according to the formula provided by Treasury Department regulations. And so I spent a lot of time reading those regulations. I've spent a lot of time reading other resource materials. I've literally spent months working on this project and a significant portion of my time. I've talked to many people. I've talked to our auditors. I've talked to other people in other counties. No, not many people are following this exact path, but I think it's, frankly, they haven't thought it through as carefully as we have. And I've had a lot of experience. I'm not a CPA. I am trained as an attorney. I've had a lot of experience dealing with regulations, and frankly, I think I'm as qualified to assess the risk under those regulations as anyone else you'd find. So very confident in our position here, and I think that it's perfectly appropriate for the board to proceed.
Thank you. Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you. I understand what Supervisor Eisen is working towards. My concern is, and where I would like to hear from people is, since monies are there, we need to implement it. For example, Resolution 114, we're voting on more funding because we didn't execute. So my concern is kicking the can down the road. What can we do to facilitate what we already have and implement it? That's my concern and what I would like to hear addressed.
Thank you. Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee vote was 6-2. Is there a supervisor here, or does maybe Mr. Fari might know why those two supervisors or folks voted no on this?
Might have responded, sure. There we go. Thank you for the question. I'll leave it up to each individual supervisor who voted no to respond to that because they have their own personal thoughts and opinions. So at the leave of the chair, And if they want to respond, that's certainly their option.
I will answer as chairman. The two aren't here tonight that voted no.
Okay, thank you. And then, question for Mary Ann. The county executive said this was legal. Corporation Counsel, you drafted this resolution. From your opinion, what we're doing here is perfectly legal?
I do have to give credit where it's due. Mr. Collard roughed out this resolution, and he had indicated and assured to me, because I had questions about this, and he explained, again, this resolution has nothing to do with spending, that it is basically, it is legal. So hopefully I've answered your question.
Yes, and then just one follow-up. We heard earlier that there's two counties, ourselves and Washington County, that are following the same model. I would just bring up that, what about the other 72 counties following the other procedure of spending ARPA dollars? And that's all I have. Thank you.
Supervisor Depperding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to thank Finance Director Collard for that explanation. That certainly does clear the air, and for me too. But honestly, this looks to me like it's just simply a shell game after a while, because as the Finance Director said, there's the federal government's calculations on what's considered lost revenue compared to what we actually have. Two different types of things. It almost kind of reminds me of just mark-to-market accounting, where you can just basically say, well, this is what our profit is, and so it's like, well, through this calculation here, that's where we have our lost revenue. And I know that other counties have been picking up on this too. Of course, it's $33 million. I mean, they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that they can get that kind of money. So I'm just going to be voting no on this. Thank you.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director of Administration Collard, for going over that. My reason for supporting this is rather simple, and it's what I said earlier. It's about clawbacks and what the federal government is going to do. The way I see this is that it gives us an opportunity to kind of take more careful stock for the ARPA committee to find the projects that it thinks will have the best impact without creating any sort of unfunded mandate in the future once this funding runs out, in addition to not creating a possible boondoggle in terms of a project or a capital improvement project. So I think this is a prudent decision. I know it's an unconventional one. I think it's a prudent one because the feds are going to try to do clawbacks in the future. That's almost certain, no matter who's in control of Congress. And I think it's probably best that we take our time instead of just rushing headlong into items that we may have, and for the ARPA committee to do its job. So thank you, and that's all I got.
Supervisor Cox.
I think it would be a prudent idea to maybe turn this over, as Paul Eisen had mentioned, to the new finance director, Mr. Kaiser, and have him work the numbers out and see how they match up, along with Mr. Collard. I believe Mr. Collard's got the numbers figured out pretty well, but there could be another pair of eyes who is a CPA and who has been doing his job for 34 years to take a look at it. And I think that would be a better situation to start with.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did I hear you right, Mr. Collard? You said that with 70% of the counties in the country are using this procedure. Did I hear that correct? And if that's correct, where did you get that information from, may I ask?
That's out of NACO.
And that's one further point. I asked at the WCA leadership call last week after I heard the ARPA meeting, and there's no data in this state of how counties are differently using this money or what the procedure is. I do appreciate the answer that the county executive gave to County Supervisor Bender before, but I'm just curious now, where'd you get that from nationwide, that 70% of the counties are using this procedure? Thank you.
Just before you answer that, I want to remind everyone the motion was made and seconded to refer it back. We're getting way off track, and so would you want to answer Supervisor Norton's question?
The 70% number came from a publication. I was just looking, I don't have it here with me today, but it was from a NACO publication, the National Association of Counties, and they had, Supervisor Eisen has a copy there. It's the same material I passed out to members of the ARPA Strategy and Outcomes Commission. So it is on there, as I'm sure Supervisor Eisen will confirm, although I'm just a little uneasy about claiming that they're following this procedure. I think where we're differing from most counties, if this resolution is adopted, is not in claiming it all as lost replacement of lost revenue, but in applying it to expenses, general expenses that we've already occurred, and leaving the money in the general fund for future use by the county board upon recommendation of the ARPA Commission. Yes, thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Yes, Supervisor Eisen has handed me the publication, executive summary overview of Treasury final rule for ARPA fiscal recovery funds for counties. It says 2,137 counties, or 70% nationwide, are now eligible to invest the entirety of their recovery fund allocation for general government services. And general government services is really the outcome of calling it lost revenue.
We have to recognize that there's a standard acceptance of $10 million. Any county.
Thank you, Paul.
Any county can.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, there was a motion made and seconded to refer it to finance. Was that your motion, correct, Supervisor Eisen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And it was
I thought it
second.
was ARPA Commission.
No,
He said ARPA Commission.
Did you say ARPA or finance?
ARPA.
ARPA?
Yeah, he can't refer it to
Referring
a
back to
department.
ARPA.
ARPA. Did you refer it back to? Okay, you referred it back to ARPA then.
With the proviso that the director of finance will recalculate and that he will examine and report on the details. The devil is in the details.
Okay.
And
I knew I heard finance in there someplace. So the motion is made and seconded to go ahead and refer it back to the ARPA committee. Correct? Okay.
yes, sir.
All right. Not seeing any other discussion. I'm going to try it by voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Nay. I would say the nays have it, but maybe we better do it by voice, by count here, just to make sure. And the nays have it. So it's 6-30. So will not be referred back. All right. So now we'll go back to, who was it? I think you made Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The original motion is on the floor now again?
Yes.
Thank you. I watched the ARPA Commission meeting 2 times and had a conversation with Director Collard today. My concern about the resolution as presented is that the ARPA Strategies and Outcome Commission may be relinquishing some of its duties unknowingly as a result of this resolution. And after watching the meeting 2 times and listening to that conversation, I really believe it is the intent and the committee believes in their mission to figure out how to disperse these funds in Winnebago County, how to put them to use. And this county board invested them with this, I don't want to say authority, but with this mission to accomplish that. And with that in mind, I would like to offer an amendment to line 31 of this resolution. I'm just going to back up to line 30 and read, "Be it further resolved that the eventual use of the funds created by recognition of this revenue will await further action by the board," and then add, "upon recommendations from the ARPA Strategies and Outcomes Commission."
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Supervisor Dowling, did
Not on the motion.
you have problems, or I hear bells going? Just hold on, I gotta wait for.
Who seconded the motion?
Supervisor Norton. Okay. Supervisor Eisen, did you have your button pushed? No, evidently not. Okay. We heard it. Any other discussion? I don't see any. So I'm going to do it by voice again. All those in favor of that signify by.
Do we have the amendment on our screens or restated?
Restated because I was.
No, that's fine. I didn't get the whole thing either.
Would you repeat what you had, please?
It's on the screen.
On the screen.
Is that correct?
Yes, line 31. Line 31 to add, "upon recommendations from the ARPA Strategies and Outcomes Commission."
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, whoops, Supervisor Hens.
Sorry for the late pop in on there. I just wanted to ask, and I don't know who we would ask about this, does that need to be specified? Can the board take action without a recommendation from the ARPA committee on ARPA funds?
Everything goes back, no matter what our decision is, it always comes back before the board.
I know it comes back before the board, but I mean, we wouldn't get anything unless it came through the ARPA committee or commission at first anyway. That's my question. Is this a redundancy that we don't need in here?
You asking my feeling? I don't think it needs to be in there, but that's my feelings. She made that, and I think she has every right to do it in.
Okay, I just thought maybe someone would.
Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is how these meetings get so long, people tweaking these amendments, you know. Thanks.
Supervisor Hanson.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with Supervisor Hens. I'm not understanding the amendment. I think it's a given anyway. So I'm going to say no.
Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Director Collard. Is there anything, once these funds are used to replace lost revenue, is there anything that prevents the board or a board member or any committee from bringing forward a resolution to spend those funds or a portion of them?
Well, I think it's debatable because there was a resolution passed by this board last year, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but the resolution creating the ARPA Strategy and Outcomes Commission said that any proposals for spending the ARPA money has to go first to the commission for recommendation before it comes to the board. The board can always overrule its own resolution and consider something anyway that might come without recommendation from the commission. But I think your point may be that it could be at least argued, again, I haven't looked that carefully at that resolution, that once we go through this process, is it really still ARPA money? The intent is still to spend it that way and to go to the commission clearly, but perhaps it could be argued that that a supervisor might say, this isn't ARPA money anymore, I'm going to have, a different committee submit a resolution, or I'm going to submit one myself as to how to spend that money. So that would be the purpose. I don't know that it's necessary, but there is perhaps a potential ambiguity that would be resolved by your amendment.
Well, in listening to the meeting, the commission meeting, and in our conversation today, I think it was stated clearly that once this happens, they are no longer ARPA funds, and we cannot refer to them as such, and they were referred to as the Spirit Fund in that meeting. And so, so in keeping with the spirit of the ARPA Commission and letting them go about their work of coming up with recommendations for the uses of this money, this amendment is important for this resolution.
Okay, not seeing any. No other lights. Got a motion made and seconded to go ahead. And on line 31, upon recommendation from the ARPA Outcome and Strategy Commission, that's what would be put in there. I'm going to do it by voice, hopefully voice vote. All those in favor of that being added signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. I believe the nays have it. All right. Resolution 11110.
No, we haven't voted on the resolution
Oops,
yet.
I'm sorry, we haven't voted on the other one. Oh, sorry. On the resolution here now. Going too fast. 110, back on 110. Now on the original, on 110 there now. Okay, we have Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say I will be supporting Resolution 110. I appreciate the safety net that this creates. I think it's very thorough, and it's something that we need, especially now that we've accepted the funds. We need our hands free to serve our community in the best way possible. Thank you.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I watched the ARPA Commission meeting too, and I think I must be misunderstanding something. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Collard. So if we do this, this goes into, I don't know what they call it at the meeting, I don't know if they call it a segregated fund or whatever. Could that mean that none of this money does not have to be spent until whenever? I mean, could no money be spent out of this fund until October of 2025, for example? That's what I'm trying to get clear. There's nothing that says that this money has to be spent by a specific time frame, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I oppose this resolution. It is disingenuous to say 70% of the counties, 2,100 counties, use their ARPA funds, all their ARPA funds. There are 3,000 counties. ARPA permits any county to use $10 million for lost revenue without having to prove that you lost revenue. and you can use the rest of the money for projects such as we designed. The point is this: we're voting on establishing replacement of lost public sector revenue. You can vote no. You can go back and you can get $10 million on a blank check. That's what the 2,100 counties did. And most of them got less than $10 million because not everybody has a 171,000 population. I therefore ask you to defeat this resolution because we can take $10 million and we can still have the $23 million for individual projects going forward. And we can conform with the basic regulation Treasury guidance that says you report December 31st. What is it to wait 2 months?
I see no other lights on at this time, so we'll try a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. Roll call. Roll call. Go on a roll call. This just has to be by majority, right?
Chuck has to vote and.
Chuck, did you vote yet?
Sorry.
It's 27-7.
Passed 27-7, with 2 abstentions. For absence?
Abstain.
Abstentions, okay. Last time I was saying abstentions and they're absent, so. Now, resolution number 111-10-2022, approve airport hangar lease amended between New View Technology Incorp. And Winnebago County. Supervisor Gabbert. Still on.
After this is seconded,
Okay.
I hope it is. I move for approval of Resolution 111-10-2022.
Supervisor Grant, did you second it? Yes, sir. Supervisor Gabbert.
I'd like to make some, I guess, friendly changes, money-wise. On line 17, I'd like to change the dollars to $969.73 per month. And on line 26, I'd like to change the $88 to $318. And I'd like to explain that this reflects the increases for the hangar apron part of this lease. So those are correct numbers based on the increases that were approved by the Aviation Committee and this county board. So it's just making those numbers read accurate as they should be. And those are, the first item is per month, the $969.73, and the other is a change to $318 in the first year. Thank you.
Not seeing any lights on. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution 112-10-2022, authorize Winnebago County to grant a perpetual easement to American Transmission Company, ATC, for the Q43 transmission line located at 1221 Knapp Street, Oshkosh. Supervisor Buck. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of resolution number 112-10-2022.
motion is made. We have Supervisor Cox was first to second it, so. right. I see no lights on here. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution 11310, 2022. Approve a budget transfer in the amount of $87,924 for replacement of 3 water heaters at Parkview Health Center. Supervisor Schellinger. Let me get you on here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of Resolution 11310, 2022.
Second.
I got Supervisor Cox, because whoever's second, you got to push in if you want a second, remember, so the girls get it over here. I don't see any discussion on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution number 11410, 2022. Approve a budget transfer in the amount of $29,600 for replacement of an industrial dishwasher at Parkview Health Center due to price increases since the original quote was given. Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of Resolution 11410, 2022.
Seconded by Supervisor Hran. Supervisor Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, when I was reading the original proposal, there's only a 30-day contingency on it, and I think that's crazy in government. I think in the future, consider a 90-day lifespan of a bid. Thank you.
Supervisor Gabbard. Nothing? Supervisor Miller.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just have a question. It says that this budget transfer will reduce the undesignated funds. For which year, 2022 or 2023?
Well, the fund balance rolls over automatically, so it's the cumulative effect of all the financial transactions we have other than in designated or segregated accounts. But, so it would affect the fund balance as of the time the money is spent, which I think is still anticipated to be 2022. I don't know if we're positive of that, but I'm seeing some nods from Lindsay back there, the administrator. So we would expect it should be in 2022.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, sir.
There are, 5 resolutions before us tonight that all say this. And if this is for 2022, those 5 resolutions amount to $185,000. Was that amount of spending taken into account when we, set up our borrowing for this year? Did we borrow enough? Did we not borrow enough?
I would say yes, it was considered. When we set the borrowing amount, we did an analysis under our general fund balance policy to determine whether we had more than we called for in the undesignated general fund, and it was over by a little over 10 million. So we borrowed, I did that calculation, and we're supposed to reduce our borrowing amount by at least half of that. So 5.2 million or 5.3 million. So we reduced the total amount of our capital improvement projects, which we normally borrow for. I reduced that amount by, I think, something like 5.8 million. So it was a little over half of our overage. So that took care of bringing our fund balance down to maybe 5 million over the target range. So these items and some others that will come up in the budget will be items that we're not borrowing for that will reduce that fund balance, but we have about $5 million of room before we get into the target range. So we're really looking to collect a list of almost $5 million or something in that range to bring down the undesignated fund balance before we're within the target range. So that's why we're not looking for other revenue sources or for any borrowing for any of these projects.
Okay. Thank you.
Not seeing any other lights on. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 115, 2022, authorize a capital improvement project and a budget transfer in the amount of $12,000 for a feasibility study to determine appropriate funding for a renovation of a projection system at the Parliamentarium and other requests identified in a pre-study. Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of resolution number 11510, 2022.
It's seconded by Supervisor Gordon. Supervisor Zestera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be voting against any of the Fox City's request for funds, and that is because, first of all, I was disappointed that as a new supervisor, we were asked to approve a large engineering feasibility study. I felt that that was, I regret my vote, my yes vote at that time. On Friday, I went to the campus the second time. The first time, one of the first offices that I saw had, it was a lot of about diversity. This last Friday, I took pictures, I studied them, I read the posters that are displayed at their intersection office. And one was Center for Dreamers, a poster on that stating women are powerful and dangerous. Black Lives Matter. They are to serve undocumented students by the College of Social Work. And where government is truly of the people. I just find that I don't want to support a place that is crossing educational lines and teaching indoctrination. I am against that. I talked with the president prior to this meeting, and he and I both agreed we are at ideological differences. Thank you.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you. I'll be very quick, and I should have asked this before. In the future, I don't know who I address this to, Mr. Elder or whoever, could we put on there if the Allegheny County is approved of it at that time? Because I know that's a big question we a number of us have, is I know we split the cost. We'd like to know when we approve it, does Allegheny County also approve it at the same time? In the future, okay? Thank you.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to question this $12,000 feasibility. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to question this $12,000 feasibility study. How did we arrive at $12,000?
Dr. Rudd, would you like to come up here to the podium and
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Martin Rudd, Assistant Chancellor, UW Oshkosh. What order would you like me to take those in? I can perhaps answer Vice Chairman's question first. So the feasibility study is our estimate based on our experience of the scope of the project. What we're looking to do in this project, as I've explained to this with this group before, is to make a study of the planetarium dome and the physical changes that will be needed in order to update the projector system that's inside from a Digistar 2 to a Digistar 7. So this is an amount that will be split between the two counties, and that's our internal estimate of the cost of to bring in a company to do a feasibility study.
Did you have a firm give you a quote?
Yes, we've worked with companies to do that. Yes,
And
as part
so
of
a firm gave
this,
you a quote of $12,000 to do the study?
for the feasibility study. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you solicit quotes from multiple firms?
That I do not know. Joanne Reif is here, the Director of Facilities. She's online, I believe, from a conference in Chicago. She might be able to address whether we had multiple bids on that.
My focus ladies and gentlemen, is that if we're going to spend the taxpayers' money, we should get it into a situation where there is competitive quote or bidding on this process you want to use. We got to get away from this just picking a firm I've been using for the last 10 years, and that's the one I get a quote from.
That's not what we're going to use, because this will go out for competitive bids.
Okay, well,
Yes,
that's what
yeah.
I was.
Sure.
So 12,000 is an estimate.
An estimate from an internal company that we use, but this will go out for competitive bids, yes.
Why don't you bring the most favorable bid back to the board and ask for that?
If Joanne's here, she
We're
might be able
working
to
off
answer
an
that.
estimate. They could come in at 10 grand instead of 12.
Sorry?
They could come in at 10,000 instead of 12.
They could, absolutely, they could, yep.
Yeah. I suggest the process might be a little flawed.
Joanne, are you on and can hear us? You're on mute. Still on mute?
I'm unmuted. Yay. The cost estimate of this $12,000 for the feasibility study was estimated by a design firm that has previously worked on the project, but we would have to follow the Winnebago County procurement process in order to go out and solicit the bids. So we need approval of funding before we can go out and solicit those bids.
It's the company is Strang who originally did the architecture work for the planetarium.
Very good, thank you.
Supervisor Norton, I will go to him next. He had a question on, did Audi Gamey approve this?
As these are 2022 capital projects, so we're sort of late in the year. So Winnebago County has approved these a long time ago, yes.
Audi Gamey did?
Yep.
Okay. And I don't know if you have any answers for Supervisor Testero?
I do, yes. So the supervisor visited our intersection space. Our intersection space is, and I will quote from our website, part of the Division of Academic Support of Inclusive Excellence, and is designed to support and create an inclusive community for students from historically excluded and or structurally marginalized groups, as well as an educational space for all. So this is a space on the Fox Cities campus where students from all populations can gather. We welcome students from all walks of life. We especially encourage students from our underrepresented groups, our Hmong students, our African American students, our LGBTQ plus IA students. Many of you will know that in Wisconsin we have the largest educational achievement gap between black students and white students of any state in Wisconsin. On state scores, black students score approximately 47 points lower than their white counterparts. And so we create educational spaces so that equity can be achieved for all students, no matter their backgrounds, and we strive for that every day.
Supervisor Stafford.
You're good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, one quick question. Can I get a copy of that study that you just mentioned? That sounds, I'd like to learn more about that.
It's from Wisconsin Public Radio, from a public study. Yep, cool. I will send that to you. Yep.
Thank you, I really appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Absolutely. So I'm a little confused, and I'm hoping that someone can help me here. And what I'm looking for is someone from the county to help me with this. So what I've heard is we don't have a quote, and I fully agree with Supervisor Fari on this, is that we need to be more diligent in making sure we get competitive quotes. But did I hear right that we have to approve the money before we can actually go out and quote? And then does that mean then that we reapprove the money? I'm just really confused on how that process works. So if anyone could help, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can, if I can, Mr. Vice Chair. So the process is we have an estimate from a professional company as to what we believe the feasibility study will cost. And then using Winnebago County procurement rules, we will search for 3 competitive bids on this, and we'll use the procurement process to select one of those. We believe that they will come in at or under that bidding price. As with other projects, if it comes over, we will have to come back through the committees and to this board for additional funding. So let's say it comes back at $14,000 or something like that. We will have to go back through both counties to seek an additional $2,000.
So what happens if it comes back at 10,000?
That's good.
Well, no, what happens? Do we just don't spend the money?
Yeah, we just don't spend the money.
Yeah.
So we're not actually outlaying any cash until we have that. That's what I'm asking.
That's right. Yeah, this is authorization for $12,000.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Supervisor Gabbard.
Just to piggyback on a couple of things here, but they both concern you, Dr. Rudd. So I think Supervisor Fari had a good take on this. So we've contacted an engineering architectural firm that worked in the past. I understand that. Now you're going to get this approval tonight possibly, and you go out for bids and hope you get 3 competitive bids. But in the industry of construction, the guy who came in first, the other ones are going to look at that and say, why bother? You've already contacted that architect engineer for a reason or other, so they may bid it, but they may bid it high, or they may not bid it at all. That's what's happening in the real world out there. So I think that process is flawed, not for your project specifically, but in government, that procurement is flawed, seriously. The other thing is, I just want a clarification on this. So you said that Outagamie already approved these, and now we're on the backside of it. But if we didn't approve it, or they didn't approve it, it doesn't go forward.
That's correct, Supervisor.
It has to be both or none.
That's right. Both counties, the UWO Fox Cities campus is jointly funded in its maintenance and capital projects by both counties, and therefore we seek 50-50 equal split between the 2 counties on all projects like this, and both counties have to approve the same amount for these to move forward. That's correct.
Just another caveat, when you put it out for bids, and you've already had the previous architectural engineering firm, you may not get bids because they're thinking they can't be competitive because you've already had somebody in the background that was involved before they were. So that's happening also. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I'd just like to remind Supervisor Gabbert that when we bid the airport out, that they knew that we budgeted $5.5 million. But the Bureau of Aeronautics gets an awful lot of people that look at their bids because they bid out so much every year. And that came in $1.5 million under budget, even though they knew we had $5.5 million. The UW has so many projects on them campuses, they actually get very competitive bids, much better than what the county gets. Because we basically do a project, we're done with that project. We don't have numerous campuses like the university does. So their bids are very competitive. Outagamie approves these projects with their budget. So like all the 23 projects that they're gonna do, Outagamie will approve with their budget in November. We're the ones, like they tell us, dragging our feet and costing them more money because they were ready to put these projects out for bid in January, and here it is, middle of October, and we're talking about first approving our money in the budget. They would have put these out January 1st, but they're always waiting for us, and that's why I asked our county exec if we could get our projects approved in the 23 budget so that we could put them out in the beginning of the year. You know, each of these are only half of the funds that you see. We pay for the $12,000, Outagamie reimburses us when the project is done. If no funds are expensed, we don't bill them. But if you see that planetarium, there's literally busloads of kids that come there every day for field trips, and you know, it's a great benefit to our community. And if it does get renovated, the UW system's gonna spend over like $1.5 million in the projector system. You know, it'll be a state-of-the-art planetarium again instead of something that's basically out of date and needs to be renovated. So I hope we pass this so we can move this forward.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I plan to vote in favor of this
the Barlow Planetarium is a jewel in the state of Wisconsin, and we're lucky to have it here at the UW Oshkosh Fox Cities campus. It was the first major planetarium in the state of Wisconsin, and we keep holding Outagamie County back because they share the running and the financing of this thing. To decide not to vote for this, the increase in the visitor capacity and the lobby and the HVAC and the lock system and the railings and step lighting and all of that, to reject those improvements because you don't like posters that are hanging in some other places, seems like it'd be like saying, as a vegetarian, I'm going to vote against this because they serve hamburgers in the cafeteria. I mean, let's stay focused on what this is and how important this is. 30,000 visitors a day, and a lot of those are school kids visiting that planetarium. This is important, and we're lucky to have that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Rudd, the question was posed that Strand and Associates is, you went with them in the past, but correct me if I'm wrong, Strand and Associates is not going to be the people that are doing the work. They're going to go out and subcontract that work out to other firms. Is that correct?
I don't know because we're not sure that Strand's going to do the work on it. They did some pro bono work for us because they did the original drawings of the planetarium and have helped many other educational institutions in Wisconsin. So I don't know that Strand's going to do this work or even subcontract. I don't even know if they're interested. What they did was help provide us with a pin for the estimate of what they think a feasibility study will cost. And again, to remind this group, the way that we approach these projects is to do a feasibility study, come back to this group with the results and to discuss them, then to propose a design and engineering phase. Come back and discuss the results of that, and then the third phase is approval of construction dollars.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to speak again, but Supervisor Binder got me fired up. So I have to clarify something, and I like you a lot, so this is not derogatory. We did a lot of work on that airport bid. Bureau of Aeronautics, they went out and looked at contractors. But two of us, Jim Schell and I, called contractors to bid that job. So we got 5 bids, and we were under 1.5 million, which is a kudos to this county that we saved you that money. I'm not against this project. I'm against the process of how we go about and do this. And I'm also against the fact that we're always behind the 8 ball. Winnebago County is always behind. So here we sit in 2022 working on a capital improvement project, and we're not out for bids yet. So it's going to be a 2023. So my only question was, if one doesn't go in, one county doesn't go in, then we have to start all over again. So it's not that I'm against the projects, it's the process. I think we can get bids on this very easily. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to just say that when my comments about taking pictures of posters in an office are brought up, I need to speak up about that. I talked with you, Doctor, and I mentioned undocumented. Do you support undocumented students at that college? Point of order. Really? That is actually in the offices when you walk in.
Move to recess? Not moving to recess. We're going to do, you gotta remember, this move to planetarium. So.
It's part, right?
Part of the planetarium. Sorry.
Okay, then I will ask it later then. Thank you.
Vice Chairman Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to reiterate Mary Beth Gabbard's comments. I don't oppose the project, but we have to start correcting the process, and I disagree with that process. So what we should be doing is authorizing a resolution for them to go out to bid on the project. That's how it should be done. You know, you're gonna actually save a lot of money if you just kind of tweak the way you run this process here. So I won't support it, but once again, I support the project, but not the process. And thank you for your comments, Mary Beth.
See no other lights, but I've got to put my 2 cents worth in. I'll be supporting this, but I'm very leery of the whole school situation up there. It seems like your enrollment's going down and down and down. And now, yes, there's 30,000 people coming in to look at this, but how many is it reflecting on the students?
So let me address that. Thank you for the question as well. So the head count at the Fox Cities campus is down as it is across many of the UWs. What that doesn't reflect is two important aspects of how we are working with students. First of all, it doesn't reflect the number of high school students that are being served by the UW-Oshkosh Fox Cities campus through our dual and concurrent enrollment programs. So some UWs include those numbers in their so-called branch campuses. They actually add the numbers to the campus headcount. UW-Oshkosh doesn't do that. We aggregate them together. So that's one piece. And then the second piece is that the enrollment numbers that you see on the UW report also don't reflect the swirling and nomadic nature of our students. The fact that our students are making use of the unique opportunity that our 3 campuses have in the proximity to each other to attend classes at each other's campuses. We have the MBA program now located at the UW-Oshkosh MBA program, Master of Business Administration, is now located at the Fox Cities campus. So enrollments in that are not reflected. So while I appreciate the fact that the numbers might show a decline in the head count, what we're actually doing is continuing to serve hundreds of additional students through our swirling that is a result of the joining of our campuses.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that I agree with Supervisor Gabbard and Ferry. These are dollars that are tax dollars. It's not free money. Each and every one of us pays taxes to have this happen. And I just really want to say that however we can go about saving taxpayer money is important. Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other lights on. Take a vote on this. I'll try and do it by voice vote.
Request
Roll call has just been requested, so.
There you go, B&C.
29-6. Passed. All right. So the next one is number 116-10-2022. Approve a capital improvement project, any budget transfer in the amount of $80,000 for UWO Fox Cities main entrance and parking lot repair. Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of resolution number 11610, 2022.
Seconded by Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Robinson.
No, I already said I'm done.
All right, I see no lights. So, Supervisor Floam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chancellor Rudd, I just had a quick question about the process that Vice Chairman Fari and Supervisor Gabbert said earlier. So is this the same process? Is this an estimate that then you will take to bid? Okay. In the future, I think we should probably revise the process, not just for the UW, but for most of how we do these CIP projects and repairs. I'm not opposed to parking lot resurfacing, but I think we should fix how we approach these kinds of things in the future. Thanks.
Okay, not seeing any other. Oops, I'm sorry, Supervisor Bender.
I'd just like to say, if we don't maintain the parking lots, we're gonna be replacing them. If you look at this parking lot, it's in terrible shape. There's potholes all over. You know, it's tripping hazards. It's something this county doesn't really do very well. If you look at like the Coughlin Center parking lot, it's a disaster. I mean, and we do nothing. You can hardly see the stripes on them. You can't see the handicap parking. But that's the way of this county. You know, we finally did the sheriff's department this year, you know, which I give the highway department credit for getting that done. But we need to step up the program and maintain our asphalt so that we get the 30 years out of it that we should be getting. It shouldn't be having to be replaced in 15 or 20 years, but we don't do an adequate job of maintaining it. And these two projects, the next two projects, they're something that if we don't do it, it's gonna cost us a lot more money in the future. So hopefully we pass them and get this work accomplished so that they last a little longer.
We can't keep up if we don't have the employees to do it with. Supervisor Cox.
Folks, this has been in the capital improvement plan book that's part of the 5-year plan. I think wherever we're going with asphalting parking lots or anything else, we must have that in the plan somewhere because it follows it needs to be maintained. So let's just get on with the vote.
Supervisor Bender.
Not to take up any more of your time, but we actually don't do seal coating in Winnebago County. That work is bid out. Valley Seal Coating did the sheriff's department. We could have bid that out and had that work done in June or July. Winnebago County does not seal parking lots. That work has to be bid out. And it should be bid out like in February or March, so we get it done early in the year so it looks nice all summer. They're gonna plow that parking lot in probably less than a month, and it's gonna be all scratched up and not look as nice as it would have if we'd have done it earlier in the year. Seal gets harder. It doesn't have much time to set up right now. It takes basically 4 days to dry. But I did it for 23 years, and the parking lots that you do early in the year, and you get them 80, 90 degree days, and it's 150 degrees with the sun, it seems like that seal's a lot harder than the ones I did at the end of the year. I watched them get scratched up, and I could see the difference in them. But we don't do this work. We got $100,000 budgeted for parking lot maintenance, and all we simply have to do is bid the work out.
Okay, not seeing any other lights. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Nay. The ayes have it. Resolution number 117-10-2022, approval of a capital improvement project and budget transfer in the amount of $43,000 for the UWO Fox Cities engineering and north parking lot maintenance work. Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of resolution number 117-10-2022.
That's seconded by Supervisor Gordon. And not seeing any discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Nay. The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I call for a 5-minute recess.
Oh, we're going to keep right on going. If you got to take a potty break, you're going to have to go.
Mr. Chairman, that's in violation of section 14.1 of the Winnebago County Board Rules and Article 7, section 43 of Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay, if you want to call it, you can go ahead, but Mary Ann?
14.1 specifically says the rules of parliamentary practice included in the latest edition of Robert's Rules, so far as they remain in common use and are practicable and applicable and consistent herewith shall govern the board. The rules of Robert's Rules indicate that you as chair can control this meeting.
Okay, and we're going to keep right on going along. Okay. Let's see, 43, where are we, 118? Resolution number 118, 10-2022, authorized transfer of jurisdiction and maintenance of one segment of county highway to town of Clayton and accepting one segment of town road to Winnebago County. And that resolution is pulled. 119-10-2022, authorize the Winnebago County Parks Department to submit a letter of intent to the Wisconsin Department of Transportation to acquire a Wisconsin Department of Transportation parcel located adjacent to the WIOU-WAS Trail, Wausau Trail. Supervisor Norton.
Adoption of Resolution 119-10-2022.
That's seconded by Supervisor Gordon.
Very briefly, we were approached by officials from the town of Oshkosh last year or so about trying to relieve parking situation on getting access to the Lake Buenamore, And one process or one way to relieve it is there's a parcel of land that the DOT has. What this is no monetary commitment on our part. I believe, and Adam's in the back, I believe we have 90 days, they have 90 days, that we, the city of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Area School District, the DNR, and the town of Oshkosh can bid on this. Right now, there's no monetary thing on it. We have that monetary pledge to purchase this. It's just intent.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only question was going to be, did we vote on Resolution 118?
It was pulled.
It was pulled. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
It was pulled by the chair of the Highway Committee. Okay, not seeing any other discussion on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution number 120-10-2022, authorize 5-year renewal agreement between the Winnebago Land BMX Incorporated and Winnebago County. Supervisor Norton.
I move the adoption of Resolution 120-10-2022.
Seconded by Supervisor Gordon.
Very basic, this is a renewal of a 5-year agreement that we had with the Winnebago, we will have with the Winnebago BMX group. I just want to, we did tour this, and for your history and for most of the board's history, this is one of the longest standing programs we've had in the Winnebago County Park System.
Not seeing any lights on. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 121-10-2022, authorize the sheriff's office to accept $113,209 local law enforcement agency initiative grant from the state of Wisconsin to be used for specialized training, equipment, recruitment incentives. Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve Resolution 121-102022.
It's been seconded by Haran, Supervisor Haran. Any discussion? Don't see any discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 122-10-2022, authorize the sheriff's office to reaccept a $15,250 aligned law enforcement response team special weapons and tactics alert SWAT grant from the Department of Homeland Security for a February 2022 SWAT commander course that was originally approved under resolution number 235-112021. Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve Resolution 122-102022.
And that is seconded by Supervisor Gunderson. Not seeing any lights on. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 123-10-2022. Accept grant funding of $10,575 and approve budget amendment to study the implication of transportation access to and from school in Oshkosh. Supervisor Youngquist, just hold on, there you go.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Resolution 123-102022.
It's seconded by Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where is that grant coming from? Who's the grantor?
Supervisor Youngquist? No. Oh, here comes. Come right on up here, sir. You're late.
He's right on time.
There's a question for you.
This grant is from the Department of Public Health at the state.
Supervisor Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question for you, Director, is obviously this resolution is heavily focused on just Oshkosh. Is there any intent for particular additional funding to be sought to kind of conduct a similar study for other municipalities within the county?
So this project is specific to Oshkosh because it's Go Transit Oshkosh that offered the subsidized bus fare for students. And so what we're trying to do is just evaluate how well did that work, and then provide feedback.
Thank you.
Supervisor Gabbard.
Doug, can we get a copy of the study when it's done?
Absolutely. It'll be made public.
On your website or whatever?
Yeah, I'm not sure how we'll put it out there.
I mean,
but-
it should be public information because
Yep,
we're not using names.
it will.
Okay, thank you.
Not seeing any other lights. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 12410, 2022, approve the extension of current project employees working for the Winnebago County Health Department past their 2-year limit in the previous 12/30/2022. Supervisor Youngquist.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve Resolution 124-10, 2022.
That's seconded by Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Resolution 124 was originally voted on by the Board of Health Committee on August 19th, 2022. In August of 2022, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services cited that the 7-day average for COVID-19 vaccines was 4,500. As of October 5th, 2022, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services cited that a 7-day average of COVID-19 vaccines was 604. I also researched the monkeypox vaccine for Winnebago County, and I see that the Wisconsin Department of Health has administered 2 vaccines. With this in mind, it's obvious that our county's needs have changed. I understand that it's taken a while for this to get to our desk. However, because the needs have so drastically dropped, this seems unnecessary. Thank you.
Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't support tracking people, and I can't support vaccinating people, especially with all the new information coming out, all the new studies, that how harmful this thing is. Thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
I'm going to vote no on this. If we need to revisit it before December 30th, that's fine, but I don't see the extension based on the given trends that are happening right now, so I'm going to be voting no.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is to Doug. How did you arrive at a 2-year extension as opposed to just maybe a 1-year extension? We're hearing on the news, obviously, that COVID is going to become more prominent. We're also hearing that the flu season should be more severe than previously. Indicates maybe a 1-year extension. So how do you arrive at 2?
So if I can clarify, we're not asking for a 2-year extension. We're asking for a waiver of...
A 2-year limit.
A 2-year limit, correct. And so right now we have about 3 staff that would be with us 2 years by the end of this year, and then 4 additional that would be impacted next year. we've hired, we've had as many as almost 50 staff on at one time, and we've probably have run through somewhere between 80 and 90 staff throughout the pandemic. So this is for, the few staff that we have left that have a lot of experience, that have been working with us. They're working on outbreak management, they're working on disease investigation, there is some vaccine support in there, and they're supplementing our staff. We're trying to get our staff back to regular public health work, and by maintaining these staff on, we're able to let them do that. And we still have grant funds available to support that.
What is the defined extension you're asking for then? Let me phrase it that way.
Well, the way the resolution's written right now, it would just be to allow the staff that are currently hired to extend past that 2-year limit.
How far past?
Hopefully not long, but, we don't know.
So you don't have a definitive date?
No, I mean,
And that could be indefinite then?
we're down, well, no, it wouldn't be indefinite because we're not going to carry them past, what we can use the grant funds for. So right now, grant funds are still in place for COVID and monkeypox, and those funds run into 2024, I believe. So hopefully, because we're down to, right now our total FTE of staff that we're employing right now is about 8.5 FTE. And like I said, that's down from a lot more than that. And so we're paring down as we can.
Do I interpret what you're saying is that you want to keep them on until the funding is exhausted? Would
Well,
that be a better way to put it?
I want to keep them on as long as we need them, because if I can't keep them on and we still have work to do, I've got to train new people to do it. And they already have almost, they already have the experience. And so it's certainly a benefit to keep them on.
Okay, thank you, I understand.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess this is more of a question for Director of Administration Collard. I have two questions here. The first one's for you, Mike. The first one is, which account would this come out of in the budget? Are we talking about, is this general fund, or is this included in Director Guerin's budget? Where does this come from? And then in the future, I guess this is part B of the first question, for possible additional extensions, would we have to then do a budget transfer? I'm just a little bit lost on the fact that we don't have to do a budget transfer for this. I'd like to know why we don't have to.
There's a sizable budget in the public health department currently for temporary and project employees. And that was approved as part of the normal budgeting cycle in the preparation of the 2022 budget. I could look up the amount, I don't remember it offhand, but it's a mid-six-figure budget just for temporary employees that they've had since the beginning of the pandemic. And so this wouldn't extend that budget at all. It would be well within the already budgeted funds. If they didn't have, these particular people extended, it would be, they could hire other project employees and still be in the budget. And there's also significant funding for temporary employees in the executive 2023 budget as well, although I think it's reduced somewhat from the 22 budget, if I remember correctly.
Okay. And then the second question I have is for Director Guerin, and there are also two parts. The first one is, could this be done vis-a-vis contract work instead of having them on as FTEs, and have other counties, how have they approached this?
So, yeah, during the pandemic, we have, had some contracts, to help fill in, especially at the peak when, we were really strapped for assistance. It's at a much higher rate, of course. And so, yes, could we contract out for it? Yeah, we can contract out for anything if you can find, the right people to do it. In this case, these are staff that have been with us. They're all part-time. And, for us to let them go, just to hire somebody new and retrain them, just isn't, it's not a good way to be efficient with the dollars that we have.
Okay, and then what have other counties done in the same situation? Have they done extensions? Have they not done extensions?
Well, the rules that we have related to hiring temporary and project employees are unique to Winnebago County. I don't know what the temporary rules are in other counties. You know, many, they may be paying overtime for existing staff, they may be contracting out, they may be, you know, hiring staff like we have here on a temporary basis. So there's a variety of ways that that's being done.
Thank you.
Supervisor Gustafsson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also have the concern here of the potential indefinite end date for the employment of these project employees. I think they had a very specific goal when they were originally brought in, and now it looks like their goal continues to evolve into a position that I believe, again, would need to be brought back to the board in some sort of budgetary ask or any sort of, you know, further discussion into the need for these employees. So thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I'd just like to say, if we don't approve this, those employees will be terminated, and then a new employee will be hired. He has every right to do that. All he's trying to do is save the training. If you want to basically have him hire new employees, you know how hard it is to find RNs and find people. But we can terminate these employees. I think some of them are done at the end of October, and then basically we just hire some new ones. They're gonna be there one way or the other. If you wanna get new employees and have to spend maybe 2 or 3 weeks training them, getting them on board with the paperwork and everything, then turn this down. But they're still gonna be there. They're just gonna be different employees. So we can basically train them, spend 2 or 3 weeks training them, and all he's asking to do is use the employees that are trained for a little longer. It's not costing the county any extra money. The money's in a grant. And one way or the other, there's gonna be an employee there. It's either gonna be these employees or gonna be new employees that they're gonna be training. So I urge you to vote for it and get the maximum amount that we can get out of the employee. Rather than spending 2 or 3 weeks training them, why not keep the employees that are already trained and let them do the job?
Supervisor Haran.
I've got a question for you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for you, and that is in relation to what Supervisor Bender just said. How long does it take you to retrain someone, and what is the cost of training somebody and the length of time it takes you to retrain somebody?
Sure, I mean, those are good questions. It depends on the role. If we're hiring somebody to, you know, help staff our vaccine clinics and they're RN and they have the experience, it doesn't take that long. If they're doing disease investigations and advising, you know, nursing homes and daycare centers about, you know, how to handle the outbreaks that they have going on in their facilities, well, that takes a lot of time. You really have to have a really good understanding, you know, of, you know, the current recommendations, how those facilities operate, you know, and just all the mechanisms of disease that come with this. And it's not just, you know, I mean, there's COVID, there's other respiratory illnesses, there's a lot of complicating factors, and that can take a while, and having that experience is really helpful.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm from the medical profession. I'm an RN by profession. But can you give us an estimate on the cost? And, you know, if you were to say it takes 2 weeks or a month to train somebody to do what these people you have on your staff already, what's a guesstimate on the time and the cost?
Yeah, most of these staff are not being paid market rate. You know, we're hiring temporary staff at around $25 an hour to do this work, and so we're actually fairly lucky that we actually have a pool to pull from. We're paying a little bit more in some instances where we've had staff return that have retired. That's wonderful expertise and certainly worth the extra, the extra pay. You know, if it's going to take us, you know, I guess, you know, anybody can do the math here. If we're paying $25 to $30 an hour on a temporary basis, and we need to have them observe and, you know, work with staff for a couple of weeks, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, you can do the math. It's
8 hours a day.
So, yeah, it's going to add up. And
$25
like I said, these are we're only using these staff when we need them. They're all part-time, and it's, you know, it would certainly take us a while to try to replace them. And we're fortunate that we've had staff that have been willing to stay on as long as they have. And we've really benefited from, you know, from them being willing to be so flexible with us, because we just call them when we need them.
Thank you.
Supervisor Youngquist.
Thank you. I was going to say what Supervisor Bender said. This is not a monetary issue, and it's about training and keeping the good ones that we already have. So I would hope people would vote yes.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to maybe confirm with the Director of Administration. So the mechanism that allows a department head to hire a special project employee is that there's budget, correct? That doesn't, the director doesn't have to come to the board and have the board approve hiring a special or a project employee. That's just a budgetary function, right?
Partially, there has to be budget and there has to be a specific approval from the county executive as well. But you're correct, it doesn't have to come to the board.
And so what has been said a couple of times that if we reject this and we have, let's just assume we pass the 2023 executive budget with no changes or whatever to that line, and he has a budget, he just hires brand new people, and there's nothing, this board isn't involved in that process, right? Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you so much.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you. A couple quick questions. To you, Mr. Coward, again. Is this situation unique? Other departments have used this mechanism to extend project employees in the past. Am I correct?
No, I believe these are the only
ones?
project employees that have been extended past the 2-year rule that we have in our policy.
Okay, I thought we changed. And my second question, Doug, did we not, or did you not try to extend the last time the length, and the Personnel Finance Committee said no, have it a shorter time? Am I correct or not correct? You
No, we did ask for an extension for project employees that were, coming near or likely to come up on a 2-year mark last year, and that was passed. I don't even know if these are the same staff anymore, right? I mean, they're coming up on 2 years. These are probably not even the same staff anymore. I mean, maybe there's 1 or 2 in here that are the same, but these are likely different staff, and we're only asking for an extension of the staff that are currently hired, not people that we haven't hired yet. I mean, if they're already working for us, we just want to be able to keep them on longer than 2 years to, finish out the work.
Are these the ones who staff the vaccination clinics, like at the Expo Center and that are downtown every Saturday and other places in the county? I'm just...
Some, let me see, if I'm looking at here at our vaccine staff, and there's one, a former employee actually, that would not, that came back, that would expire by the end of the year, and that's it. I mean, one vaccinator. The rest of them are all working other aspects of it, helping us with hotline or helping us with our disease investigations, our Wisconsin electronic disease surveillance system, helping us with some of our communications. I mean, there's a number of areas where we're getting help.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is more about operationally, not necessarily about their duties, because I'm a little confused. Maybe you can help me out here. Mm-hmm. So I heard that these are very part-time people. We call them when we need them, right? That's correct? Mm-hmm. Right? But if we let this expire, we can't use them at all, and we can't rehire them. That's what I'm hearing. Because in, I want to say, private sector, right? Something like this may happen, right? Have some contract people, let it expire, you need it again. They're very part-time, so they probably have that flexibility, and you pick them up again, right? So I'm actually kind of confused why we're discussing this in the first place, because then I also hear that you have a budget, right? And you can hire whoever you want. Work needs to get done. You talk to county executive and you hire. So why are we talking? I really don't understand why we're talking about this, and why the approach wouldn't be let this expire and just rehire those people as you need them, especially since they're very part-time and they have flexibility, and we call them when we need them anyway.
Yeah, I think we're not trying to circumvent the system here. We're trying to be very transparent about how we're using staff. We have rules in place regarding temporary staff and project staff. that are meant to, protect those staff or protect the county. And these are our rules. And so, the Director of Administration, Collard, might be able to tell me whether or not, once we terminate somebody, if we can rehire them again. That's just not the intent.
Supervisor Haran.
I just want to clarify, when I was asking you my question, it costs money to retrain people. And I just want us to all understand that that does not happen if you've already got people who are employed.
That's correct. We're better served by utilizing the trained staff that we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was my point. Thank you.
Not seeing any other lights. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. Well, we'll do a roll count. Vote aye if you want it, nay if you don't. That passed 23-13.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 12510, 2022, amend Winnebago County General Code, Section 1.12, Parent 10, to provide per diem payment and expense reimbursement to non-supervisors who are not acting within the scope of their employees or office in so doing. Supervisor Bender.
I'll move ordinance number 125-102022.
And that is seconded by Supervisor Haran.
And if I could, I'd like to amend it that the pay wouldn't start until January 1st of 2023. That way there'd be no budget transfer for this year.
Okay, that'll have to be. Pardon? Is that a friendly amendment, or were you making that a motion? Is that a friendly one?
Yeah, it's just an amendment.
Supervisor Haran, do you go along with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Supervisor Norton.
It is in my understanding, and that this was passed, that any future amendments or adjustments to any of the committees that added a citizen member, that they would automatically get a per diem. And I say this because, as the Parks Committee know, I tried to get a citizen member assigned, amended to the Parks Committee, and it got shot down. But I'm just curious in the future if that means that any committee has a citizen member, they automatically get a per diem.
I would say yes, but I'll let Supervisor Bender answer that.
I would believe if they're appointed by the county exec or the chairman of this board, yes, they would get a per diem.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say I served on the City Plan Commission for over a decade. I never expected any money for it. I was a citizen doing my part to help my government. And, we've had discussions in here about members and their per diems and attending committees and whatnot. And now we're talking about extending the payout to regular citizens who are on these committees. I know I served it because I was doing my duty. I was trying to help my community get better. I wasn't doing it to get any kind of money out of it. I don't think we need to be paying these people. These people come forward. We don't have problems filling these committees and commissions. We have people on them. I will not be supporting this.
Supervisor Haran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am going to reiterate what Supervisor Hintz said. When I went to get elected for this board, I saw it as a civic duty. I did not think that there was going to be money. When I have worked as in the polls, I never expected to get paid for it. I saw it as my civic duty. So I am going to, that's what it is. If I volunteer to do this, then I am not expected. I don't think personally that I should get paid for it. Thank you.
Supervisor Ellenberger.
Thank you. I also agree with the
the prior two supervisors. I'm not going to support this. I'm also on the city planning committee for Nina. I've never expected to get paid for it, and I just wouldn't. Also, I'm thinking of the process that we're going to be adding this onto our staff also, another undue burden for them, and I just think it's not necessary, and I don't agree with this, so thank you.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do think there's probably a clarification that needs to be made on this. And that is that this went through JPS and we had a rather lengthy conversation on it. And I think one of the things that you have to realize is that right now we have citizen members who do give or who do get per diems. And this is about making sure that we treat everyone the same. Because right now we have some committees that aren't specifically listed in the rules, and if they're not specifically listed in the rules, they don't get the per diem. So it's a lot of picking and choosing. So I would actually agree with the previous comments if we were having a discussion on do we compensate citizen members. I would agree with that, but that's not the conversation necessarily. The conversation is, do we want to treat everyone equally in that way? And that is really more, I think, the conversation of this resolution, because right now, not everyone is. There are some citizen members that do get per diems, and there's some that don't. I would argue then they either don't or they do. But the fact that we allow some to and some to not get the per diem, in my view at least, is not right and fair and just. And the other thing is, right now, even though there are citizen members, and the chair is going to correct me on this if I'm wrong, there are some citizen members who aren't listed in the rules to get per diems, but if they submit, it is allowed. So that's the other thing, is that we're not necessarily even living to our rules as they sit. So I think that we need to be consistent in how we apply the rule and try to live to the rule that we've set forward in a more honest and straightforward way. And that's why I supported it. Thank you.
And you are correct, there are some that do get paid, that probably are not on this list, but they have clear back from who knows when, long before I was sitting even on the board. So what do? You're gonna take them off now? So it's a give and take. Supervisor Bender.
I'll just say, if you read this list, every one of these committees here that are listed, they get paid. There's citizens on every one of those committees that are getting paid right now. And there's citizens on the library board that are getting paid that aren't on this list. So either we pay all the citizens or we should pay none of them. And I don't care which way you want to vote, but I don't think that it's fair to take like the ARPA commission and the county board members get paid and the citizens that are working on the ARPA committee, they don't get paid. What gives me the right to get paid and them not? I was on the Diversity Affairs Commission for over a year. I didn't take one dime from that commission because the citizens didn't get paid. Why should they pay me? If I can't devote my time to that committee because I believe in it, then I basically shouldn't be there. So if we're not going to pay the citizens, then don't take the money yourself, because they're giving the same amount of time as you. And that's why I brought this up. There's 2 committees that aren't getting paid that I know of, and I don't see no reason if we're paying 10 of them, why we wouldn't pay the last 2.
Supervisor Defferding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Supervisor Stafford actually brought up a lot of the same points that I was going to bring up too. We already do have a handful of committees with citizens on them that state that who gets a per diem, and then there's some of those committees and commissions and boards that are not on there. So really, this is just kind of for us being consistent. Either we're going to tell. And that's fine if we want to ultimately determine that citizens should not get paid. That's fine. But if that's the case, then just to be consistent with our principles, then we should present a resolution that would be removing all citizens from receiving a per diem. So this is just really to get some consistency on this. I did look at how much we have paid. I looked at the per diem from last year, and want to thank the finance office for helping me out here. But I took a look at how much money this could potentially additionally cost, and it's really not that much. I mean, we're looking at probably anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 for the year. It's really not going to have. It's kind of a drop in the bucket for the budget. But just something to also keep in mind too for the board as well is that we are looking at right-sizing our committees too for 2024. So a lot of this stuff could, we're going to be reapproaching once again in 2024. Thank you.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you. I'll just reiterate about we were paying some and we are not others. For example, I found out that one citizen member is getting paid for being on the library board, and when I asked former Supervisor Larry Slaughter if he got paid for being on the Oshkosh Library Board, he said, well, Mike, I did when I was a county board member, but I didn't when I am now a citizen member, or just a citizen. And the reason is because he doesn't submit it. And I guess the burden to whether or not they get paid or not falls on the chairman, because that's the one who has to accept it or not. And I think you said that you just accept and they put in a per diem. So that's why I think it has to be consistent, and that's why I think I'm in favor of this. I will say that, I would ask that, I don't know why we have the Public Safety Building Board, members are large, because I don't think we've had a Public Safety Building Board in a number of years, so I would take them off. But like I say, and I also will say that this list was expanded a number of years ago. I'm sure Dave Albrecht, Supervisor Albrecht, probably the only one who remembers this, is because the chairman at that time had put his wife on one of these, on the commissions, the Housing Authority, and that's when it was expanded to only 3 or 4 to as many as it was. So, but I do support that, to be consistent. Thank you.
Supervisor Nelson.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I was on the Solid Waste Board for 10 years before becoming a supervisor, and I got a per diem the whole time. I certainly didn't join that board or volunteer for the money in it, but it was a little compensation for taking 2 meetings a month and in the middle of the day and running to talk trash at the Solid Waste Board. But I can't imagine sitting there now as a supervisor getting a per diem when there's 2 citizens at large that don't get anything, and they put in as much time and effort as the supervisors do. So I'm certainly in favor of making it even across the board. They're working as hard as we are on those committees. I think they have every right to get that small per diem that at least pays for the gas, if nothing else. Thank you.
Supervisor Ellenberger.
Just a couple clarifications. I did not know that there were some members of the community that were getting paid and some did not. I had no idea on that one. Also, you mentioned, I think Supervisor Depperding mentioned the compensation. I would like to know what the total compensation is that we're doing for this, and I would like to know what other counties do. I mean, you don't have to give them this information right now, but I'm just curious for future stuff if we do decide to change this. I didn't realize, because I've been on lots of committees outside of what I'm elected to, and I've never been paid. So this is kind of surprising to me, and maybe to reevaluate this for the future. I don't know if this needs to go back to the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. I don't know, but to reevaluate this. But I didn't know that. So absolutely, I agree that if we're going to go forward right now, that, yeah, I think everybody should be at the same playing field for per diem. I agree with that, but that we need to look at an overall and know what the prices are, what other counties are doing for future boards. So, thank you.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask a question of our Corporation Counsel. Is the pay on the rolls for non-citizen members?
This, if you will see, is not a
resolution. It's an ordinance, so it is in the general code.
It's in the general code?
It is in the general code. And just to let you know, as you all, well, we are in the process of reviewing the general code and updating the general code.
So that, okay, so that would be why this isn't a 2/3 majority, because it's
Correct.
not in the rule.
It's an ordinance.
Okay.
It's an amendment to an ordinance.
Well, I still stand by my initial comments, only because if we're paying some and not others, it doesn't make sense for us to all of a sudden just say, well, let's pay everyone, because if you don't believe that they should be being paid in the first place, which I don't, because you volunteer for that position, we're elected. We went out and we sought these seats. We went out and got elected to serve the people. There's a difference between that and being a volunteer who says, hey, I have the time to do this. So I just, like I said, I will not be supporting this.
Supervisor Eisen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason this is before us today is because the last time that this ordinance was amended and individuals added to the list was in 2002. It's long overdue, and that's why these people that get per diem are not in the document. And this solution avoids having to go through the painstaking effort of listing each and every position from each and every board and commission in this particular ordinance. And that's the way it is. 2002, it's overdue. And I call the question.
Second. Okay, the question has been called.
I want to go home.
Two-thirds, yeah.
Can't get by without calling the question, can you?
So, first we have to vote on calling the question. This will be the first thing. All those in favor of calling the question, you'll have to vote on your iPads. Those in favor of calling the question, press A. If you don't, press nay. And that is passed. So the question has been called, 30-6. All right. All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Would the chair clarify the vote required for this resolution?
Two-thirds.
My document says majority of those present.
Mine does too, and that's why I was wondering.
It's 2/3. There must have been something typed in wrong. It is 2/3 to call the vote.
Okay. 2/3 of those.
Two-thirds the vote. It's not majority.
In the actual ordinance, it's a majority.
Pardon?
It's a majority for the ordinance. To call the question was 2/3.
Oh, so
Right.
the majority of the ordinance is
Right.
correct. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
So now we just need the majority on this. Okay, so all we need is majority on this. So all those in favor of it signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Nay. It's carried with the ayes. The last two things, I want to thank everyone. We tried our 2-minute thing. It worked pretty good tonight. I really appreciate it with your time and all that. And the other thing, if you haven't applied one way or the other on the Christmas party or holiday party, whatever you want to call, let the girls know, because we got to find room for it all. It isn't that we you know, we can't just say we're going here and then have 20 people when they're gonna charge us for 80 people. So let the girls know. I appreciate that. Supervisor Albrecht? Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.